I'd like to call this meeting to order. If we could please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, next is the moment of silence. Thank you. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Mason.
Present.
Trustee Stylen.
Present.
Trustee Reinders.
Present.
Trustee Fialko.
Present.
Trustee Consolino.
Present.
Trustee McNaughton. Mayor Knightsky-Troicke.
Present. All right, next is community recognition. Seeming we have none for the evening. Does anybody have any recognition? No, hearing none. Any amendments to the agenda?
Mayor, I'd like to make an amendment to the agenda.
Sure.
I would like to table L1.
I'll
Should
second
we wait
that.
till we get to that agenda item to table that?
Okay.
Okay. Was there any other amendments to the agenda? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, or I'm sorry, can I get a motion to approve the agenda?
I'll make that
I'll
motion.
second that.
Trustee Mason, Trustee Fialko. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Mason.
Aye.
Trustee Fialko.
Aye.
Trustee Stylen.
Aye.
Trustee Consolino.
Aye.
Trustee Reinders.
Aye.
Motion carries. Approval of minutes, seeming we have none. Public comment is next. Just a reminder to please keep your comments to 3 minutes. Thank you. Joe Therese.
I'm Joe Therese. I'm a member of the Environment Committee. The reason I'm here is to speak about the tree ordinance. Okay, so over the years, I've been a member of the people, one of the people of the Environment Committee that goes out for the Community and Nature and Harmony Awards. I also do the Big Tree Contest. And people residents of Homer Glen, they just love their trees. And we've seen this more recently at Parker Hadley Road when the county tagged over 4,000 of our trees and the residents were just up in arms. And also during my travels, I'd like to say, as far as development goes, our most luxurious homes and our biggest homes are on wooded lots of 1 acre and more. People, Homer Glen is unique. We have large wooded lots. This is what people with more money want. And it brings them to Homer Glen, the kind of people we want to attract to our village. And that's one of the main topics. There was always it's going to hold up development. It's not. It's going to help development here in Homer Glen. It's going to bring the kind of development you want. And so that's one of the reasons. So we have an excellent staff, and our staff looked at what other nearby communities have for their tree ordinance. And this is not what we're asking for. Is not something new. We're not asking you to be a groundbreaker. No, we want to catch up to what other communities in our area have already. So if you think about this, please accept it and go with this recommendation by the Environment Committee. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Gary Strzok, you're on the agenda tonight. Did you want to wait till that moment? Okay, unless you have something to say now. Okay. Okay, sounds good. Christy Nasser.
What's a meeting without me out here yakking at you guys? I'm Christy Nasser, owner of Crystalline Farm, and I'm here on a pleasant note tonight. I don't know when everybody's going to be leaving, changing of the guard, but I'm here to thank all of you guys for doing such a tough job, and I know it is. I also want to thank the people that have supported Crystal Farm. I'll start crying because you guys have supported me financially, donations to the farm, food for me, for the animals. It's been wonderful. And I never knew what the saying was, it takes a village, and I'm living proof that it takes a village to keep on going, because with all my rescue animals, I kind of forget about me. Perfect example is that I've got a horse that's very sick right now, and I have not been thinking about what I need, but people have been bringing things in for my animals and helping her come along too. So I want to thank everybody and the village of Homer Glen for helping me stay doing what I love to do, which is taking care of animals, rescuing them, believing in the people of Homer Glen, and always hoping for the best parts of the people in Homer Glen. And for 143rd Street, yay, let's save it, and our trees on 143rd Street. Thank you guys, I appreciate it.
Thank you. Andy Pinelli.
Hi, good evening. Andy Pinelli, President of the DeBoer Woods Homeowners Association. Trees have an important role in maintaining the character of our village and being in harmony with nature. But a lot of damage has been done over the last 2 decades, and the major reason for that is we don't have as effective a tree ordinance as maybe we need. It doesn't effectively discourage enough removal of trees or encourage replacement when they need to be removed. So we owe it to ourselves to protect what's left. Morton Arboretum's list of tree benefits are long, including erosion control, improving property values, and mental health benefits, but the erosion of village character kind of comes like death by 1,000 cuts. New residents, and especially house flippers, move in that don't share village values, and they cut down trees they don't like, but they don't replace them. This has happened in our neighborhood and in adjacent neighborhood developments. In one instance, we had a house flipper cut down 20 significant heritage trees on a 3/4 acre lot. Mayor Russ Patrizzo lives nearby him. He was incredulous. How does this happen? I said, well, you know, the tree ordinance really only works for people with 5-acre lots or more. We had, in a similar event, we had Mayor Yukich come out, but he could only shrug his shoulders and say it was we can't do anything, the tree ordinance doesn't call for it. So this has happened, and it continues to happen. The tree ordinance we have now doesn't really work effectively to protect the character of our village. So I hope we can take the opportunity to create an ordinance that discourages the removal of significant and heritage trees, encourages replanting of trees when they're removed, and one that applies to all parcels. We hope the workshop tonight is viewed as an opportunity to take a stand to protect the character of our village, and we're counting on you to help. And just wanted to also take a moment to thank you all for all you do and have done for the village. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Heidi Pasella.
Hi, my name is Heidi Pasella. Some of you know me as Heidi Hadley. I'm here to comment on the proposed amendments to the Village Code Section 138-1-3-5, what Andy and Joe just spoke about, the trees. I reviewed the proposed information as well as read the past meeting minutes regarding the proposed changes on the tree terminology, the tree mitigation, and the preservation, and it appears that this was well thought out and planned and organized. It is already the policy of the village to enhance the tree population to maintain and protect existing trees as stated in section 138-5. Additionally, trees are extremely important as they enhance our air quality, they help stormwater runoff, they stabilize soil, they maintain balance in our ecosystems, and they even reduce noise through buffering. Many residents move to Homer Glen because of all of the trees and the woodlands. I know there's specifics and details to finalize regarding the proposed amendments, and I'd like to add that creating a new program or a new committee may help Homer Glen bring more awareness to the tree preservation codes. For example, the Morton Arboretum offers a plethora of information that any resident could apply or share with others. The village could apply for an Arboretum accreditation program free of charge. The village can host frequent workshops on the benefits of trees. There are also many tools online for everyone to check out, such as the tree canopy summary. You can look that up for Homer Glen. That states that the residential and agricultural land use types in Homer Glen could have the greatest impact in expanding the tree canopy in the area. Residents could be encouraged to plant more through tree giveaways or maybe a tax break for properties that have more canopy. The bottom line is that trees are important to our community, and we need to be sure they are healthy, replaced if cut down, and we need to incorporate the residents into these changes so that they are educated on the environmental responsibility aspect. Lastly, there have been scientific studies showing that tree planting contributes to an enhanced sense of community and empowerment to improve your own neighborhood. And that is a research article from 1994 called The Social Benefits of Resident Involvement in Tree Planting. Thank you.
Mike McGee.
I'm Michael McGee, 13601 Longview Drive. So my wife and I have it's a nonprofit senior dog rescue that we've operated since 2010 in Homer Glen. It's foster-based, so we now currently have over 120 foster homes throughout Chicago and the neighboring states. We currently just invested in a home that's adjacent to our house at 13540 Longview Drive. We're going to use that as a Airbnb, and the proceeds are going to go into our rescue. We're under contract for 10 acres. It's at 551 South Parker. So we hope to have that. We'll close that this next month, and then we hope to have that as a sanctuary. It's zoned A2 agricultural. So we've been trying to work with Homer Glen for all these years, trying to find properties. We're investing in Homer Glen. Why are we here? It's because of the environment. That's why we moved here in 1997. So we're active in the community. We're helping the community in a nonprofit way as volunteers, for example, trying to rescue dogs, right? So this is important to us. We saw that on the corner of King and 139th just last year. We looked at this property. I think there's 2.5 acres. It's on the northeast side of that corner, on that northeast corner. The land, we know that there were at least 10 heritage trees on that wooded lot. It was completely wooded. It was purchased, and then now it is just a parking lot that's gravel by some company who knows who they are. And 80 to 90% of the trees have been removed, and there's just, on the periphery of this property, there's just trees. There was nothing to stop the buyers from doing that. I mean, there's no mechanism to prevent this, or there was no way for the village to understand what they were doing. There were no questions about it. So I guess what I'm saying is that I'm an example of somebody that's coming to your community that has some influence, that's bringing positive things to your community, like our rescue, that's very broad. And we are doing positive things in your community. We just ask that you consider this, the revision of this ordinance so that we can all live in an environment that we chose, why we chose Homer Glen. Thank you.
Thank you. Fran, I always screw up your last name. Yep.
Good evening, everyone. I don't have much to say, but I just wanted to say that I strongly support the comments made by my fellow environment members, and I really think that there's a big need to update the tree ordinance. And by the way, I'm a 2-year member of this Environment Committee, and I also chair the Environment Committee for the Homer Glen Junior Women's Club, so I'm very involved in everything to do with the environment of our wonderful village. So thank you for your consideration, and I look forward to the workshop tonight.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to reports and communications from President and other officers. Village Manager Joe Baber, you're up first.
Thank you, Madam President. I'd like to invite everybody to the Behavioral Health and Addiction Recovery Committee's panel discussion this Saturday, being held at Village Hall from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. There's going to be a number of discussions occurring. We have a number of guests from the living room, Orland Trinity Services, ADHD, Autism from Beyond Acceptance, Play and Music Therapy, White Orchard Counseling, the Hero Group. There will be Narcan training and education, the South Suburban Crisis Center, and also how to have difficult conversations regarding substance abuse and mental health issues. This will all be in conjunction with a number of professional people that we will have here. So I welcome everybody to attend. We did have a sign up on our website, but everybody is welcome to attend. Thank you. That's all I have.
All right, thank you. We're going to go move to the trustees. Trustee Fialko.
Yes, thank you, Madam President. I only have one thing to say, and I'd like to say happy anniversary to my beautiful wife, Rose, which is tomorrow, and that'll be 42 years for us, so thank you.
Congrats. Is she here? I didn't see her. Oh.
She's not feeling.
Oh. Trustee Consolino.
I just want to take the time to acknowledge March is the month of awareness for many health issues, including colon cancer, brain injury, and developmental disabilities. Reporting for Environment Committee, we should be getting our tree seedlings in mid-April, and so for anybody who wants them while supplies last, we will be putting up notice on the website and on social media, but we don't have an exact date as of yet. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Mason?
Nothing to report due to the fact that the Safety Committee is next Wednesday, but I would like to welcome back Lieutenant Pete Piazza. Thank you very much, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Trustee Stylen?
No report.
Trustee Reinders?
Thank you, Mayor. Just a reminder to let everybody know that A&F will be on April 16th this coming month at 2 o'clock, and that the next Parks Committee will be canceled for April 4th, and our next meeting will be on April 21st at 4 p.m. I apologize. I was not able to attend the Plan Commission meeting on the 20th of March. There was a lot of discussion regarding a park that was going to be coming in by a new developer. The park would be located at 159th Street. Our committee discussed at length the location of this park, and it was unanimous that we felt that this was not a good location. The traffic moves very fast on 159th Street, and this park would actually be right at 159th Street. But in our discussions, we did realize that one of the most important things was that there was not a park that would be able to service Hidden Valley and Oak Valley. So that was part of the discussion, and I don't think that was mentioned at the Plant Commission, because that is very important to us, that there is nothing there for those kids. And what we did discuss at the committee level was that we are going to start to do some research for that area there. Our village manager, Joe Baber, and I, we were thinking about talking to ComEd to see if there's a parcel of land there that would be available, and also looking into why the builders never gave us either a parcel of land or a donation in lieu of land for a park there. So those are some of the things that we discussed. So we did hear the residents, and we are concerned for the residents of that area there. So I just want to let everybody know that I apologize that I couldn't be there. I had the flu, but I did really want to make the residents aware that we are not forgetting about them, and that area is definitely on our radar. That's all I have there.
Thank you. Thank you. Village Clerk?
I probably should have done this during community recognition, but just sending out congratulations to the Homer Mustang wrestling team. They took first place as a team at the IESA AA State Championships. And just last weekend, the Homer Junior High 8th grade girls volleyball team placed second place at IESA State.
Thank you. Village Attorney?
Yes, just real quick, just want to give a quick update on the House Bill 1397. As many of you know, House Bill 1397 deals with quick take, which would give the Will County Department of Transportation quick take authority in filing eminent domain actions and seeking to acquire right-of-way along 143rd Street. On March 21st, 2025, pursuant to House Rule 19A, the matter was re-referred back to the Rules Committee. Now, what does this mean in English? Well, no one has a crystal ball to really figure out politically where it's going to go from here. But generally speaking, when a bill goes from a assigned committee back to the Rules Committee, it means it did not meet the deadline that was set forth by the Speaker in the House rules to make that bill go out of committee. So when there's not enough, for lack of a better word, support, people that have interest in a bill for it to get out of committee, quote unquote, within a 30-day period of time pursuant to the House rules, it then automatically gets re-referred back to the Rules Committee. That's where it currently is. Now, doesn't mean that the champagne bottle's open at this point, because politics tells us that anything can happen at any time. The Rules Committee can certainly refer it to another committee, or it can take action on this bill on its own. However, given the circumstances, this is a favorable sign, not an unfavorable sign. However, it's too early to tell what the probability of success or failure is going to be at this moment. At this juncture, again, historically, this is a positive sign, but again, we can't, celebrate a victory here yet, because the Rules Committee can still take action on the bill and bring it to the floor. So that is just a quick update on that. Secondly, I'm working with the village manager and staff on negotiating some of the remaining Homerfest contracts. Some of them we've had favorable negotiations with. Others we're still working on. We do anticipate, though, by the next board meeting that we're going to bring before the board for consideration exceptions that are being requested to be made by way of indemnification insurance. This is not the norm. This is just certainly where we're at this stage, and it's up to this board to decide how they want to proceed at that point. Lastly, we've been also asked to continue our providing updates on status of Illinois American Water. The village is continuing to receive citizen complaints, resident complaints, which the village is diligently recording and keeping tabs of. Again, we don't want this to supplant or to replace your efforts and your actions in making objections formally to the ICC. As residents, you must do that. You must file a formal complaint with the Interstate Commerce Commission regarding any issue that you have with your service with Illinois American Water. What the village is doing is simply being a backup, accumulating that information so that in our discussions with, hopefully our future discussions with Illinois American Water and currently other state agencies, that we have the facts before us to assist you in speaking on your behalf. And that's, Madam Mayor, that's the only report that we have at this point.
Thank you. Public safety officials, welcome back, Pete. I'm going to turn the microphone back over to Trustee Reiner. She had forgotten something she wanted to add.
One of the things I would like to say is I would just like to thank the residents for their quick response to House Bill 1397. I found out at the last minute, at the very last minute, through Legiscan, because I do get notes periodically from Legiscan on things that I'm following. And when I saw that it was coming up to executive committee, I actually put out a memo onto social media so that people would see. And I have to tell you, our voices were heard. And I just want to thank the residents for their quick response to that.
Thank you. All right, last is me. I don't really have too much to report. I am the co-chair of the Special Needs Committee, which encompasses special needs animals as well. And our committee also focuses on veterans and seniors. So I know that Mr. McGee stated that he has some senior dog rescue. Not that the committee can help fund anything for you guys, but it's always nice if you guys can provide something that you do need. The community is very good at backing things that you guys do, and I'm sure that I can help push if you need carrots for the horses or you may need dog food or toys. The community will absolutely rally behind you on those sort of things. Those are easy tasks that we can get done, and I know the committee would support that as well. Yesterday was Cerebral Palsy Awareness Day. It's something that I, cherish the day of CP. I appreciate everyone who wore green, not only for St. Patty's Day, but for CP Awareness Day. Today is Epilepsy Day. Those who wore purple, thank you. And last and not least, and thank you to everyone who filed the witness slips and worked with the village to get that done. That was a huge impact. Do you remember how many actually witness slips there were? There was over 200.
Last time I checked, there was over 200.
Yeah, over 210. So keep going, keep following the village website and Facebook pages, and we're going to keep trying to make sure that everyone's aware of what to do, when to do it. It's really important. I really do believe that those witness slips had an effect on what's actually taking place. So thank you to all the residents who continue to fight that battle with the village. All right, with that being said, we're going to move on to consent agenda. Item 1, consider for approval the accounts payable for the period of March 15, 2025 through March 27, 2025 in the amount of $483,134.17. And number 2, consider for the approval the treasurer's report of cash and investments for the period ending December 31st, 2024 in the amount of $47,385,131.33. Is there a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Trustee
I'll
Reinders,
second.
Trustee Mason. Madam Clerk, please call the roll. I almost said it again.
Trustee Reinders.
Aye.
Trustee Mason.
Aye.
Trustee Consolino.
Abstain.
Trustee Fialko.
Aye.
Trustee Stylen.
Aye.
Motion carries. Moving on to legislation and action items. Item 1, consider for approval an ordinance granting 1, a variance to permit an accessory structure in the front yard where accessory structures are not permitted obstruction. 2, a variance to increase the maximum aggregate square footage of accessory structures from the allowed 1,200 square feet to 2,277 square feet. And 3, a variance to increase the maximum height for the accessory structure from permitted feet 15 feet to 17 feet for certain real property located in the R2 Single Family Residential District at 13506 West 167th Street, Homer Glen, Illinois, HG 2506V, with the following condition. The applicant must plant 10 arborvitae or something similar, in each approximately 5 feet tall for screening of the building. Is there a motion?
Mayor, I'd like to table this item.
I'll
There's a
second
motion to
that.
table by Trustee Reiners and a second by Trustee Mason. Any discussion? Oh, no discussion. Madam Clerk, please call the
We might want
roll.
to apply a date to it.
Yeah, I'd like to know why.
Well, there's no discussion, but a date would be
There's
good.
2 ways to table though, right? It's one.
I'm going to
by-
actually
by-
revert to the attorney
by
for his
date.
advice.
You can set it, you can table it indefinitely, or you can table it to a date certain, date specific when it's brought up.
Trustee Reiners, you made the motion. Do you have a
I think
preference,
that there's a
Rita?
lot more research that has to go into this, so I'm not going to do anything date
Definitely.
specific.
The motion's to table indefinitely then?
Table indefinitely.
Is that
I
your
agree.
second?
Correct.
Okay, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Reinders.
Aye.
Trustee Mason.
Aye.
Trustee Stylen.
Aye.
Trustee Fialko.
Aye.
Trustee Consolino.
No.
Motion carries to table. You're the gentleman, right? That was the item on that. Would you two be able to connect later, Mr. Baber? Would you be able to connect with the resident to discuss more, get more information? Okay? Thank you. All right, moving on to item 2. Consider for approval a payment in the amount of $36,000 to Ace Pyro LLC per the terms of the 3-year contract that was signed in 2022. The contract service agreement is for years 2023, 2024, and 2025 for the Homer Community Festival. Is there a
I'll
motion?
make that motion.
Trustee Fialko, is there a second?
I'll second.
Trustee Mason. Trustee Fialko, you have the floor.
Yes, I had the honor of putting this contract together 3 years ago, and the prices for our fireworks were really, really expensive. We did not have a 3-year contract at that time. I negotiated a 3-year contract. When we were under the 25-minute provision for fireworks, for 2023, it was going to cost us $47,000. In 2024, it was going to cost $49,600, and in 2025, it was supposed to go up to $52,000. When it was negotiated, though, we were able to cut that down by 5 minutes, saving over $10,000 in that first year, and that's what got us the stage and the sound that year without asking for more money from the band. And also, we eliminated 4 speakers and the FM module, so that saved us $15,000. That's how we got this stuff, the changes that we made without spending any extra money. So it was supposed to be for the 20 minutes in 2023, it was $37,000. In 2024, it was $39,000, and then it was in 2025, it was going to be $42,000. So with renegotiating it for the 3-year period, we got 5% more product because we locked into a 3-year contract, and that's why it stuck at $36,000 per year for each of those 3 years. There was some work put into it. I would highly advise recommending this for Dan and for Homerfest this year, but I want to keep a note, everybody to keep a note. This is up after this year, so you'll have to renegotiate the fireworks contract, and I also believe the year that's going to change, your 4th of July flips from us having it the week that we're having it right now, and probably next year, but on that Monday, when 4th of July reverts back to that Monday, your dates for those 3 years, if you decide to go with those 3-year contract, which will save you the most money and give you the most product in that 20 minutes, you're going to have to keep a close eye on those dates, Joe, with Dan, because it flips back over in the middle of it. But anyway, thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Mason?
Thank you. Great job, Trustee Fialko, for negotiating that down. Basically, the way I see it is, and I don't know if it's 10,000, but if it was 39,000 last year and we got 3 years of 36, we're losing 9,000. The only question I would have is the insurance. Does it meet the standards?
Yeah, may I speak? It exceeds the standard that we have.
Okay.
It far exceeds it, so.
that it?
Fantastic, thank you.
Trustee Stylen?
Thank you, Trustee Fialko, too, by the way.
Yes, I too appreciate the negotiating the price down, but, you know, we did lose time. And the other thing that we lost is the choreographed fireworks. And that was a lot of pride, I think, for the community. And maybe if we don't have it this year, especially if next year being an anniversary year, we consider bringing that back. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Consolino?
No, I would strongly agree that I would like to see it come back as well, but otherwise I'm good with it.
Trustee Reinders?
I'm happy with this. I think this was great. I think you did a great job on the contract. And Dan, it's in your hands now, so don't forget, you have to renegotiate.
Thank you.
Where's the beard?
Dan, do you have anything you wanted to add?
No, just that the 36,000, we'd pay the 18 as a deposit, and then the remaining 18 would be paid once the contract is fulfilled.
You know, I'm not going to lie, I didn't look at the contract because we've done this year after year, and I didn't review it. What happens if it rains?
Rains would be a rain date that we would have.
That same weekend?
Yes.
Okay. Madam Clerk, do you want to call the roll?
Trustee Fialko?
Aye.
Trustee Mason?
Aye.
Trustee Stylen?
Aye.
Trustee Consolino? Aye. Trustee Reinders?
Aye.
Motion carries. Number 3, consider for approval an ordinance amending Chapter 75, Buildings of the Code of the Village of Homer, Glen. Is there a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Trustee Mason, is there a second?
I'll make the motion.
Trustee Reinders. Trustee Mason?
This is something that Casey and the building department, Scott, have all been working on. They take classes. We have to update the most current version, stay within the cycle, and it puts the village in compliance. The Village of Homer Glen has not made significant changes to the codes for some time now. I believe the last time was 2018. Since then, the references on the International Council Code of Technical Codes and the additions have been updated. This occurs about every 3 years. Adopting a 2024 ICC building code ensures that the village stays current and meets the safety and the standards. These gentlemen work hard, they take classes, and they stay current, and this brings us up to speed.
Trustee Reinders?
I just want to say great job, guys, in updating this. Sorry. Great job in updating it. I'm not going to repeat everything he said because that's a little redundant, but just want to say thank you for being so diligent and keeping us up to date.
Trustee Stylen?
Agree.
Trustee Fielko? Oh, sorry, were you done?
Yeah.
I agree with everybody else.
Trustee Consolino?
No, I agree, but, and I want to say thank you, but I have a few questions. There were some things that were stricken that I didn't see get replaced throughout. So if you go into the code, I think it's at 75-13, we had some, doesn't have a page number on it. I'm talking about the top in the code. So
I think it's towards the back.
yeah, so it would be like at the
third
top of the page, it says Village of Homer Glen, Illinois, 75-13. I mean, I know that we had to update all this, but my questions were, you know, we had some language that was taken out. There was a lot of language for inspection of prefabricated structures, and I didn't see it get replaced anywhere else in the code. So I just wondered why was that taken out? I mean, most everything else was language just updating with the state code, but so are we not adding language for prefab?
Joe or Scott, or Joe or Casey or Scott, would anybody like to?
Yes, the inspection of prefabricated structures are stricken as they're addressed now in the IRC itself.
Okay.
So
okay.
the
So then that
prefabricated
makes sense. It
structures
just,
need to adhere to the current building code.
okay.
Obsolete.
And then I had one thing, because like, I'm looking at safety concerns. So, because then it's removed also for, I think it's mobile structures, and that's on a page all the way like towards the end. So if they've just removed it completely, but then in the same section, that 75-13 page, there was, all pools shall have a separation distance of not less than 10 feet from houses, garages, and sheds. And that just seemed like an odd one to pull out.
Casey?
Yes, that's been debated and appealed many times by residents. I guess the intent of the initial ordinance was to prevent using that structure as a diving board, so to speak, for the pool.
Okay, so then that, I'm just concerned about safety purposes. So if we're removing that, is there a sincere safety concern other than
It's a
people?
case-by-case basis. Sometimes there would be a, if it's 9.5 feet or 7 feet, it's still far enough where it wouldn't be a safety concern.
Okay.
But it's the hard number of 10 that we'd like to see stricken.
Okay.
On a case-by-case basis for determination.
And then we're comfortable not having the language for the prefab or the mobile units. Not that we really have any, but, okay. All right, those were my only questions and concerns. Thank you.
Is that everyone? Did I call everyone? Madam Clerk, can you please call the roll?
Trustee Mason?
Aye.
Trustee Reinders?
Aye.
Trustee Stylen?
Aye.
Trustee Consolino?
Aye.
Trustee Fialko?
Aye.
Motion carries. Number 4, consider for approval an ordinance amending Chapter 114-10 fees, planning and zoning, and Chapter 114-12 fees, building department of the code of the Village of Homer Glen. Is there a motion?
I'll make that
Trustee
motion.
Mason, is there a second? Trustee Fialko? Trustee Mason?
Yeah, this came up in admin and finance during our committee there, and we voted 3-1 in favor of it. This also is in conjunction with the building code, and it brings us up to speed. So this is just another piece of it. It goes over the landscape reviews, which has been removed and has not been assessed in 10 years. So basically, it streamlines the process and brings us back up to speed.
Thank you. Trustee Fialko?
Yes, I agree with most of that, but the other side of it is at admin and finance, we were given the numbers, and I was also given a comparable as to the $300 flat fee it is right now for pool permits compared to the proposed fee of $9 per $1,000 of the cost of the pool. With the first example that I'm looking at, it would have cost between the permit fee and the permit fees for the pavers, it would have cost that resident $448.50 at that time, and then the total right now would have been $960.30. So that's a $511.80 increase. So technically what we're doing, it's okay to update things. I don't mind doing that, but this is a tax, no matter which way we look at it. Anytime we have a permit fee, that's a tax on the resident. So I would have liked to see something come more into line with if the costs were bundled and they were closer to, I agree, after 10 years you need a little bit of an increase. I don't know about a 50% increase, but I do agree that if they were bundled and it made it easier, especially for our inspectors to go out there, and the cost was a little closer to what it was before, or there was a small increase, and we were given percentages based on the year, or the amount of years, I guess, that might be more acceptable. But at this point, I really think the increase in the fees is too high, and I think it needs to be relooked at myself. To come up with something a little more reasonable with the increase in bundling the cost. But right now, the way it's separated and the way it goes bundled, compared to the way it was just a flat fee, yeah, it's going way up. And I do want to help our inspectors, but I also want to be fair to our residents when it comes to cost and the village code, and when it comes to the permit fees. So that would be my, thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Consolino?
I'm going to pass for now.
Trustee Stylen?
Yes. I'd just like to touch on the matter of the fees. One of the things that was removed was the HVAC fees, inspections, and they brought this up to be comparable when they do cement work. The fees are in line with that. Trustee Fialco calls this a tax, and I've been accused of increasing taxes or voting for a tax increase. I'd just like to point out that according to the Tax Council Foundation, which studies tax policies, taxes are monies that generate revenue for the village. And you can look at revenue generators in a couple different ways. There's just a general tax, like our sales tax, property taxes, or you collect fees. When you collect fees, it's not going into a general fund. It is actually recouping expenses that are incurred by the village to provide that service to a particular resident. So when you're providing that service to a particular resident, that means that the resident who's getting the $100,000 pool is paying for those inspections, as opposed to me having to pay for those inspections that is not getting a pool. So and our building department does not make a profit. We support the building department through our general revenues, you know, for the building, the extra admin staff, the benefits, the supplies, the vehicles. So really these fees are just recouping what our building staff is experiencing, our code and compliance, and our plan reviews. So I do support the increase in the fees. And then just another touch, the other one would be fines, which that's another way that the village does get revenues, but that is a behavioral type thing. It's not a general tax thing. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Reinders?
Thank you, Mayor. One of the things that we did discuss in admin and finance was that our building and zoning and engineer departments have to perform a lot of inspections on these pools, whether it's cement work, whether it's whatever landscaping work, whatever is going around the base of the pool. So, and they've never charged for those fees. And there's several visits that they have to make out there. And I think that if somebody's going to be putting in a pool that's over $100,000, I think that we should start to charge for all of those visits, because it is a lot of work. And our department has never charged for them before. And it's time and money that it costs the village to have our people go out there. So I'm in favor of raising the fee.
Trustee Consolino, back to you.
Okay. When, if you look up, is an impact fee considered a tax? And this kind of, I think it says it all. says, while impact fees can seem like a tax because they are a financial burden on developers and ultimately home buyers, they are not considered taxes under the law. But who does it really hit? It hits the developer, and it also hits the homeowner, the home buyer. So I'm okay with increasing on an average on the scale with, like we've done before with other things. But when you're figuring out the numbers and you're saying it's going to be a 50% increase, that's a little steep. Again, we're still kind of in an economic crisis at the moment, and I'd like to think that things are going to get better. And if somebody, can afford a $100,000 pool, God bless them. But I'm not going to persecute them for it.
Yeah.
Trustee Mason?
Yeah, in having discussions during A&F and with the other trustees and the building department, this actually brings us in line with the costing of other communities surrounding us. So that's why, besides the multiple, my son has a $100,000 pool, so I know how many times, and we discussed this, how many times they come out. They come out when they dig the hole. They come out when they run the electric. They come out when you put the liner in. They come out when the cement goes on. They come out when the fireplace goes in. They come out, they're constantly coming out. So I get it. And this puts us in line with the other surrounding communities, is why I'm for this.
Trustee Fielk, I'm going to go back around a second time since I gave Trustee Mason a second
No,
chance.
I don't think there's anything to, the thing is, as far as this cost does get passed on to the homeowner, obviously, and I haven't seen an hourly rate that was applied to this when you said we're being paid as the village for sending people out there. I understand there is a cost. I addressed that in my comments earlier. But for the increase that it's going to is what I said I had a problem with. I didn't say that I had a problem with increasing it a little bit to meet the bundling and to cover our cost. What I did say is I thought this was too high at this point. That's what I said. And I'm going to guess if you add up the hours and you divide it by the cost, it doesn't come down to exactly the wages that you're talking about that it costs the village to go out there. I want to cover that. I don't believe this is where that's at. But with that said, I understand where everybody's at, and we kind of...
Do you have a recommendation of what?
I think we would have to go back because all of them are a little bit different, but I'm just looking at the first one, and the first one alone is just a little bit too high for me to accept. I'm not saying that we haven't done it for 10 years. I get that. I'm not saying it doesn't need to be increased a little bit to meet our needs, but not to penalize the homeowner for putting a pool in, by increasing it by 50%. So that's all I'm saying. I kind of understand where everybody's at, though, and I appreciate everybody's input, but yeah, I'm not for this at this point. Thank you.
Trustee Consolino?
No.
Trustee Stylen?
I don't know if Casey or Scott have anything to add, just because of the way it was packaged together. It isn't just going out for the inspections, but there is a lot of plan review and things that go into those fees.
Sure. Trustee Reiners?
Oh, no, I'm good.
My only comment is I actually do agree that the price did increase quite a bit. If that's what the board so chooses to do, that's your decision. I appreciate you guys doing all this. This was fabulous to have it spread out like this, and you guys gave it to us in long enough time for us to review it. You sent it to us in email form over a week ago, so I appreciate that too. Do you have anything you want to add at this time, or?
We did eliminate the furnace permits.
I saw that, yeah, which is nice.
Every resident at some point is going to need a new furnace.
Yeah.
So that was kind of a trade-off. Pools are pools. Some people have them, some people don't. We're not against them at all. It's just that, a furnace is a thing that
Is a necessity. A pool is a luxury. Got it, yeah.
And that was some of our justification for the increase. So we are eliminating those permits and that cost for the homeowners.
And we appreciate that.
Thank you.
Excuse me, regarding the pools, I did a breakdown of staff hours. It's approximately 10 staff hours in total between building department staff, zoning department review, engineering review, and on-site inspections. It's a total about 10 staff hours on average per in-ground pool. So that necessitated the higher cost. There is an alternative proposal on the last page of the supplement sheet, because it is a steep increase of the $9 per thousand. I offered a calculation of a $500 flat rate fee, up from the $300. That's up for consideration as well, given the steep increase. So there would be an option of either or.
Personally, I mean, I have a pool and it's the size of a postage stamp, so, I mean, it's rather small, so for me to pay the same cost as someone who's putting in a $100,000 pool, I mean, it does not seem fair. So I agree with the method that you're using by square foot, so I agree with that. In-ground pools, I understand, are much more simplified, so I could see a flat rate on that. I just personally think, I mean, I already got a pool, I mean, I already paid the fee, but I do think that that cost per thousand is a little, it's a large increase from what it was. But again, board decision, you guys all spoke, unless anyone else has anything to add or wants to amend anything that's here. If not, Madam Clerk, call the roll.
Well, maybe we could start off by doing this. I don't have the exact numbers in front of me, but even reducing it just a little bit might get us a little bit closer. So maybe I'd like to make the motion to amend it from $9 per 1,000 square feet to $7 at this point, and take a look at how that goes. So I'm making the motion to amend it from $9 to $7.
So there's a motion on the table. Is there a second?
Second.
Just for clarity, the 10 hours of man hours, basically, obviously doesn't even cover that cost. So it's an expense of the village to do something like this.
I think I left out also that the $9 per thousand cost is based on the standard, it's our standard permit rate. So this the new fee would include any work along with the pool.
Any what?
Additional work. So if you're installing a paver patio with a fireplace, the $9 per thousand would cover that work as well. Versus now, currently, a flat rate fee covers the pool itself.
That's what I thought we had done.
Okay.
That's what I thought we had done, was bundled some other services within it.
So I'm gonna call point of order real fast, because we're still in a motion to amend it to 7. There was a first and there was a second. Trustee Fialco, do you have anything to add on your?
No, I don't.
Trustee Consolino, do you have anything for your second?
I would really like to see the numbers for surrounding suburbs.
Trustee Mason.
I just wanted to make the statement that when we had this discussion, there were some services that were bundled around the pool. So again, it had been 10 years since there's been any increase in this, and we had to update the village code and the building code. And when we got to this piece, which Trustee Fialco says it's, almost 50% increase, there's been a lot of increases over the last 10 years. It wouldn't be a 50%, and I'm not for taxation, but I'm also for covering our cost.
Right.
And when you start to bundle the services, and this is what I mentioned earlier, when you dig the hole, the guys have to go out. When you drop the liner, they have to go out. So when you start to bundle these services, and you're putting in pavers, and you're putting in a fireplace, every time they got to come out. When you start to put these things together and the fee covers that, it's not additional fees that they're getting at a later date.
Yeah, just to clarify, I forgot about the bundling. I'm going to go back, I'm going to go around in order. Trustee Stylen?
Yes, and this simplifies things, and that was the other motivation behind the increase.
Trustee Reinders?
Also, I think they did a lot of research. I mean, they actually researched they checked, the villages around us and the surrounding villages, and we are now, with this increase, will be in line with other villages. Before, we were so far below, and now we will actually be in line due to the research that they did.
Okay, just a reminder, there's a motion to amend it to 7. Do you have anything else to add, Trustee Fialco?
Yes, I do. I get what everybody's saying, but not every package is going to be the same. That's not how it's designed. And to jump from $300 to $9 per 1,000, I get it. So every resident, what they're doing with their pool is not going to be the same. And yes, if it's bundled, so we'll save a little bit on the one that doesn't do all the paver bricks, and we might balance it or gain with the ones that, or not gain, but we'll spend the resources on the one that does get the paver brick. I think going with 7 kind of puts a more gracious number to it without going. Now, this doesn't mean you can't raise it in the future, and I get, we're saying, well, this is what it was before, but before the flat fee was $300, and then you had to go with each item. I understand that. And I just think starting with 7 is a better foundation for the change than to jump to 9. And I get completely what staff is saying. I understand that. But I would feel I would feel better if we started with the lower number, and we can always change it if it's not meeting the requirements of the time spent by staff.
Trustee Consolino?
I was going to suggest rescinding. I mean, I may not agree with doing this, but I also understand that it's better to vote on this, get this done in an efficient manner. But yeah, my no vote isn't going to hurt this at all.
Okay, does anybody else have anything to add on the amendment to $7? I'm not hearing any. Oh, Trustee Steilen?
Well, just the question, there were some attachments or some figures on the back, and it said that this, on a sliding scale, Lamont was $1,000 average, and New Lenox was 8 per 1,000, Mokina was 650 per 1,000, Lyle was 1250 per 1,000. So, and that's not necessarily bundled. That's just for their in-ground pool, I believe, not for all the extra things. And what we're saying is we're bundling everything for that 1.009.
Okay, Madam Clerk, please call the roll on the amendment.
Trustee Fialko?
Aye.
Trustee Consolino?
Aye.
Trustee Reinders?
No.
Trustee Mason?
No.
Trustee Steilen?
No.
Okay, amendment fails. We're back to the original motion. Is there any more discussion on the original motion? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Mason?
Aye.
Trustee Fialko?
No.
Trustee Steilen?
Aye.
Trustee Reinders?
Aye.
Trustee Consolino?
No.
Motion carries. Moving on to old business. Anybody have any old business? The only thing I forgot to mention in my report is that the Hometown Heroes Military Banner Program is back up. The banners, that we had taken down for the Christmas decor will be going back up in May, right around Memorial Day. They'll be good for one more year, and then we will retire those banners. I had been asked, which I guess is going to be a question internally, if the residents want to keep those up for like another year or 2 years or however that may go, is there a cost, in which I don't know the answer to that, so we can discuss that later. But if anybody's interested, friends, family, someone to put up there, these will be here at the village, or you can grab one on your way out. Any other old business?
Anybody else first? Okay. I just wanted to, the fireworks, just to kind of elaborate on that a little bit. The synchronicity thing that Sue mentioned, I think it would be good for the anniversary, but that synchronicity thing cost us $2,000. And instead of using synchronicity for $2,000 at that time, what we did is a local family, a resident, made basically, not a tape, but a thumb drive with the music on it. And the way we've timed it every year, you saw that, you were there
I loved
every
it.
year. The synchronicity ended up not being a big deal, and we saved $2,000 by not using their synchronicity through Ace Pyro. So we took that $2,000 and invested it into lighting for the fest then too. So all these things where we saved didn't really affect the fest, especially since we got the 5% more product in that shorter period of time of 20 minutes instead of 25. But that synchronicity cost money. Those 4 speakers and the FM module cost another $4,000. So I made adjustments so we could have a better fest. But I understand, but it was mentioned about the synchronicity was taken away. It wasn't taken away, it was negotiated away because it wasn't necessary at the time. But I do agree that maybe for, like when we had the Beatles thing, and it needed to be synchronized, and it was a themed event, basically. It was a title, I remember with the Beatles, and that needed to be done. And if we were to do that for an anniversary year, I think that would be really nice. But every year to have it was not feasible. And so with that said, that is why that was taken away. The other thing is we need to make sure that we pay attention. I talked to Joe today about the sheriff's contract. That's coming up, and we need to start reviewing that. Joe said that we've got some numbers that we should be able to go through now, so that makes sense. But the main thing that I want to make sure is that Homerfest is negotiated into the sheriff's contract instead of us being charged $28,000 for that service when we have the fest. Obviously, I will not be here for that, and we'll miss it, but I don't want, that doesn't mean I want the village to incur that extra cost. So in our negotiations for the sheriff's contract, I'd like us to include Homerfest.
Mr. Baber, you have anything to add to that?
Like Trustee Fialko said, we're just getting those numbers in now. We'll be revisiting that with the Will County Sheriff's Department and discussing those opportunities and options.
Ma'am, I just want to make sure that we are getting it put through on April, I think it is 16th, for the next A&F committee meeting. If we could have that presented to the board at that time, that would be great.
Okay.
Okay, in regards to the fireworks, I 100% agree that it's needed for especially the anniversary, and I will personally make sure we get the $2,000 in a donation from someone to sponsor that, so it's not a village cost to cover the sound, assuming it's still $2,000, because I don't know what the increase would be. Yeah.
We're looking at different options for music and synchronicity with the fireworks. There's other options I think we're exploring for that.
Yep. Yes, Trustee Reiners.
The only thing I would suggest is, last year, I think everything was great with the fireworks and the music was perfect. But anybody that was closer to the fireworks could not hear the music. That was the only problem. As far as being synchronized, everything was great. It was beautiful. But there were people that said, we can't hear, because they were over,
I mentioned we're exploring other options.
Yeah.
All right, anyone else have any more old business? Anybody have any new business?
I do.
None for me.
Trustee Stylen.
I just have a question. L1 was tabled, but like one of the things that came out in the packet, in the materials, was notification about zoning and hearing, zoning change hearings or whatever. And people put out a sign in their yard, and the person has to, I don't know if we do it or if the resident places an ad in the paper about the zoning hearing.
We do it.
We do it, right. So I don't think that people read the newspaper very much anymore. So reaching residents about the zoning hearings, I know that a mailing goes out to the neighbors, but just maybe if we put a Facebook post and have the hearing information on the website, just saying that there is hearings for more details, visit the website. I would just like to see something like that to keep people informed.
Noted. Anybody else? New business? Okay, moving on to the workshop. Thank you, Environment Committee, for sticking around and staying, and appreciate you guys coming out here supporting your project. So the workshop is workshop to consider amendments to Chapter 138, Land Use and Site Development of the Code of the Village of Homer Glen regarding changes to the regulations for environmental conservation and tree preservation. Who is taking the floor? Yes, Mr. Gruba.
Thank you, Mayor. If I may have a little quick speech prepared.
What's that?
I have just a quick speech prepared
Sure.
here. So this might be just a little bit redundant in the packet that anybody that didn't read it cover to cover, or anybody in the audience. So I'm just going to kind of run through this. The Environment Committee has instructed us, staff, to revise the village's current regulations regarding tree preservation. These regulations are found in several sections of the code of the Village of Homer Glen, as well as within the body of formally approved ordinances. They are not all in one place. The Environment Committees and staffs perceive problems with the current code. You can see the minutes, but as summarized here, the current regulations are somewhat ineffective to preserve and or mitigate trees for new development, including for new subdivisions or future commercial development. In particular, many trees are being lost to the development for single-family homes located either on a single parcel and or lot of record, and the existing regulations are overly complicated and time-consuming for staff and the public. The broad goal of these changes, if I can speak on behalf of the Environment Committee, is to help preserve as many of the existing mature trees in the village as possible. Where preservation is not possible, on-site mitigation, replant to give new trees would be required at a higher rate. Where neither preservation nor mitigation is possible, restitution payment would be required from the owner or developer at a higher rate. There's a current fund for the Emerald Ash Borer, which could be renamed to the Tree Preservation Fund. This fund can only be used to purchase trees for planting and arborist fees. Some key terms and information, just as we kind of are talking about this, just as a refresher. Diameter of breast height, DBH, is used to measure the diameter of mature trees at 4.5 feet above grade. Caliper is used to measure a young tree measured 6 inches above grade. It means the same thing. It's measuring the diameter of the tree. I don't know why it seems to be the industry standard that it's DBH for mature trees and calipers for young trees. I don't know. So, but we're just trying to go with that. 3, the term protected tree would be replaced by heritage tree, the definition of which would mostly be unchanged, meaning that it's any tree that is at least 24 inches in diameter in excellent, good, or fair condition. The term significant tree would be replaced by a protected tree. The definition is mostly unchanged, meaning any tree between 5 inches and 24 inches in excellent, good, or fair condition. Number 5, the list of trees not recommended for planting would stay the same. This includes trees that aren't necessarily invasive but have undesirable traits such as excessively large fruit, disruptive root systems, or brittle branches that can break and harm homes, cars, or people. I put example of buckthorn. That's wrong. It should be example of silver maple or an Osage orange. Silver maples have brittle branches. They have root systems that disrupt. They're not necessarily invasive, but they're not, I guess, the most desirable tree, for lack of a better term. The list of noxious plants and trees would remain the same or be slightly expanded, and this would be retitled nuisance trees, so that would be buckthorn. The current cost to plant a 2.5-inch caliper tree, including installation, is about $700. So when you do the math, 700 or 2.5 goes into 700, that translates to $280 per caliper inch. So I just want everybody to remember that number, that's what the replacement cost is for labor and materials for a new tree. Summary of the proposed changes: tree preservation would apply to any parcel within the village, regardless of size, zoning, or ownership. Currently, there's a complicated method centering around the percentage of trees removed. It's 50% for residential properties and 75% for commercial properties. Also, the properties have to be at least 5 acres in size. So we're looking to see that, is this parcel over 5 acres in size? Is at least 50% of the trees that are on site, are they being disturbed or removed? Are 50% of those trees alive or dead? It gets complicated. So I just wanted to say that and I just also wanted to note the FYI, it's very difficult to remove over 75% of the trees on a site for new commercial development. At the end of the packet, I don't know if I think it made it to the printed copy, but it's on the online version, is that for the conceptual Dunkin' Donuts that's on Bell Road, just north of 151st, that site is very heavily wooded. Their proposal right now would not break that 75% threshold. Amazingly, there's a lot of trees on that site, and yet it still wouldn't trigger that. I don't want to convince anybody one way or the other what to do, but I'm just trying to present the facts here. The minimum size of tree requiring mitigation or restitution was lowered from 6 inches in diameter to 5 inches in diameter for deciduous trees. For conifers, the minimum tree size is unchanged at 4 inches. On-site mitigation for a heritage tree, that's 24 inches in diameter, would be changed from 2 inches required for every 1 inch removed. So replanting 2 inches, caliper inches for every 1 inch removed, from 2 to 1 to 3 inches required for every 1 inch removed. So a higher mitigation requirement for the big heritage trees. If mitigation on site isn't possible, then the cost would increase from $250 per caliper inch to $500 per caliper inch. And earlier I had mentioned that the cost per replacing a tree, current market rate is $280 plus or minus per caliper inch. So, but since these are larger trees, it'd be a larger amount, is what the Environmental Committee recommended. On-site mitigation for a protected tree. Protected trees, again, are between 5 inches and 24 inches for a deciduous tree, would be changed from 1.25 inches required for every 1 inch removed to 2 inches required for every 1 inch removed. If mitigation isn't possible, then the cost would increase from $125 per inch to $300 per inch, setting it at kind of the current market value for a tree. Summary of the proposed change continued. Trees not recommended for planting list would now require on-site mitigation or cash in lieu restitution. Example, Osage orange trees are nice, apart from that they have very large orange-sized fruit. Trees have to be mitigated that are not located with, Trees would have to be mitigated that are located within utility easements, including for pipelines. However, per the proposed regulations, new trees would not be planted within pipeline easements, but any trees that are existing in utility easements, including pipeline easements, would have to be mitigated for. If a heritage tree is removed without approval, then a fine would be $700 per caliper inch to really dissuade, removing the very large trees without approval. And this would be measured at the stump by staff. If a protected tree is removed without approval, then a fine of X dollars would be assessed. I think this was overlooked at the Environment Committee meetings. I didn't see it in my notes, but I mean, that could be $500 or $300 or whatever it is, but I just wanted to note that I think we overlooked that. If an area of trees were disturbed, including the stumps, and the stumps were removed, a higher fine could be assessed by measuring the disturbed area, and the fines for this are to be determined. I think that this wasn't mentioned as well at the Environment Committee meetings. If somebody, let's say, removed the tree, or sorry, cut down the trees on a Saturday, had the stumps removed on a Sunday, it's kind of a premeditated, thought to try to fly under the radar. And so if the stumps aren't there, there's no way staff can measure any stumps. So, maybe that this might be the best way to go about assessing a fine for that. On-site mitigation will require both planting the trees and providing the village a performance bond, cash, or letter of credit, the latter of which would be returned to the owner or developer after 2 years if the trees survive in excellent, good, or fair condition. An example of this is that somebody wants to build a single-family home on their lot, and they have to mitigate, 4 trees to be planted on their property. They would have to both plant the trees on the property and provide a letter of credit to the village for the cost of those trees. That letter of credit would be refunded to the owner or developer after 2 years if the trees survived. So that was also a recommendation from the Environment Committee. Almost done. Mitigation trees shall not be planted within the flood hazard area, floodplain, or wetland. Typically, trees don't do well that they're planted underwater, with a few exceptions. The proposed regulations were written to provide partial relief for single-family home development. This is kind of important. Trees removed on site would be mitigated at a 0.25:1 ratio. So for every 1/4 inch of mitigation would be required for every 1 inch removed. So that's a very low on-site mitigation requirement. This would not waive the mitigation, but it should hopefully encourage situating a new house on a lot on the least wooded part of the lot to try to dissuade, I guess, taking down more trees without being overly burdensome to the new homeowner. Language is added to allow village staff to waive mitigation and restitution requirements if the trees pose a hazard, overhanging a street, sidewalk, house, etc. Remove the requirement that trees over 24 inches DBH must be replanted on the site with the exact same type of tree. And an example of this is Hidden Valley that is going before the board, I believe, on April 9th. They have to remove 3 large bur oak trees. And I think the total of diameter breast height inches was 158 inches. So if you divide 2.5 inches for a new tree into 158 total inches, you end up with, 75 or whatever that math is, a lot of, young trees of only bur oak. If there's a bur oak blight, then that really wipes them all out. So staff is recommending that, that this like-for-like replacement be removed from the code, and that they can plant an assortment of hackberry and, whatever else they want to do. 1 street tree is required per every 30 feet instead of every 40 feet. This is something that I just saw. This was not from the Environment Committee. We're already under the hood taking a look at this code. Street trees, everywhere that I've worked across the country, is 1 every 30 feet. I don't know why Homer Glen has 1 for every 40 feet. This seems like a really easy fix. I mean, 2.5-inch caliper tree every 40 feet, even if they grow in, they're not going to be crowding each other out. So feel free to disregard this recommendation, but I just thought it was an easy win to add a couple more trees along the streets. Other small changes to increase clarity or fill in gaps of logic. So if there's anything that anybody doesn't remember talking about, it's just because I saw that, hey, there's a gap in logic, we just got to, fix it here. Next steps, changes can be made to the draft regulations, return to the board for additional workshops, perhaps return to the Environment Committee for further adjustment, review the draft text amendment ordinance by the village attorney, and maybe board approval of the final draft regulations via a text amendment to Chapter 138. In my opinion, ordinances 06014 and 10007 should be repealed and replaced with a new single ordinance, because the specific regulations for current tree preservation are embedded in those earlier ordinances. And if you have the earlier ordinances that are still hanging out there, but then you have new regulations in Chapter 138, then it just really gets confusing. And I think that I've seen in the past where the new ordinance, repeals and replaces, the old ordinances. No review by the Plan Commission is required. These regulations are not in the zoning ordinance, but in my opinion, I think that they should be eventually ported over to the zoning ordinance. That's where you see a lot of landscaping requirements is in the zoning ordinance, so just kind of keep that in mind. And then lastly, a couple of outstanding questions. We didn't talk about fines if the trees and stumps were removed. I already talked about that. Fines for removing a protected tree without approval. I don't think we had a resolution on that. I'm going to skip over this one and skip over that one. And there was a question at the Environment Committee about using the tree fund, or the Emerald Ash Borer Fund, I believe as it's currently titled, to purchase land that contains mature trees for the purpose of preserving those trees. I don't know the answer to this, but maybe somebody else in the room does. But just, that was an outstanding question. And everything tonight is discussed is up for debate and discussion, obviously. And I just lastly want to say, it might make more sense to obtain a consensus for the regulations and then have staff redraft the exact text amendment for the ordinance, just because it's like a Rubik's Cube and it's a lot of thinking. I just defer to the board of what everybody wants, and then we'll take care of writing that. So thank you, and I can answer any questions.
Okay. I read fast, but you read a lot faster.
I apologize.
And that was a lot to cover. Great job, but I mean, for those of us who study this thing since you guys have brought it forward, caught some of what you were going through, but for those who've never put their eyes on this before, that had to be a lot to digest. So if we can go back to the very beginning of your slideshow, and for future slideshows, if we could just put a number on each slide, it'd be helpful to refer back to a slide, because there was a few slides I was trying to keep up with and you blew right past me. When you discussed fees, just for reference, it was on page 104, because I did catch that earlier as well. I've got, there's so much red line on this that it's almost like we should have just threw the original one out and just started all over again. You caught yourself when it was like, we're not repealing, we're going to amend or rewrite or text amendments or whatever. So I just want to be very clear on what we're doing here. There, like I said, there is a whole lot wrapped up in this little packet.
Madam Mayor, before he restarts on this, we just wanted to go over, this was discussed, that because this ordinance is just, it has a lot in it, it has a lot of discrepancies, the language is off. The suggestion, because there are so many amendments, was to do a complete rewrite. And it would be much easier, not just for the tree preservation ordinance itself, but for staff, because we also don't have a landscape ordinance. And I would hope that, you know, when some of us are off the board, we kind of started talking about that direction, but there should be a landscape ordinance as well that can work in conjunction with this. Yes, Chris, so if you can go through this, you know, just as simple as possible for everybody. The other thing I want to let everybody know, that we did do comparables with local towns, and, you know, what we're requesting in here is reasonable. We're not asking for anything that's above and beyond what other townships or villages have asked for. The other thing is, you know, a lot of boards were shy about approaching this subject because they were always fearful that it would discourage development. Clearly in towns like Frankfurt, where Director Gruber comes from, Lyle, Northbrook, and Park Ridge, it sure didn't discourage any development. So we stayed within a reasonable realm, even though it seems like it's a lot because it's much different than what we already have. But I think if we could put something together that's a clean rewrite instead of amendments, I think that would help the village greatly. And I think it would also satisfy how hard the Environment Committee members have been working for not just this year, but for decades. Okay? So that's all I have to say right now. Thank you.
All right, I'm going to go around the board. Just, does anybody have any quick things? Because what I would recommend doing, starting from, this is going to be a long workshop, in my opinion, or if at least we get through some of it and bring it back another day, because this is an awful lot. If we could just start from bullet point 1 and just kind of go through, I mean, not necessarily because it just talks about the ordinances, but there's a lot of changes that you're proposing. I mean, I've looked through this thing over and over and over, and when I got to the back of the page, and I'm all about saving trees, and everyone knows, in one of my campaign materials, I was hugging a tree, got made fun of it for a long time, but when I looked at this example for Dunkin' Donuts, this shocked me, the price difference. You're talking, if you look at our current ordinance right now, and we were to, as Fialco would say, a tax, or Trustee Styling would say a fee, or cover the cost, you're looking at $29,000 as our current ordinance sits. If we were to go for this full ordinance change, you're looking at $171,700.
That is correct.
That is a huge, we're talking $100 pool fee. And we literally just, what is that, 30, 60, 90, I mean, what is that, 6, 7 times the
Almost,
the
yeah.
amount? That just
More.
seems, I'm about saving the trees, guys, but that seems so excessive to me. I mean, I know 2 years ago, when the ordinance came before the previous board, they had, and in defense to the board at that time, I don't think they understood what was being presented in front of them when the Environment Committee wanted to change it from 5 acres to 2.5 acres. I don't think, and I'm not saying you guys weren't educated, I'm just saying I just think the way it was presented was confusing for you guys, because I believe I talked to you each after and you both went, ah, or all of you went, ah, I wish I would have voted the other way. But to go from 5 acres to basically any size land seems excessive, in my opinion. Again, I want to save the trees and I want to do what we have to, but there's got to be somewhere in, not even more the middle, but I mean more towards what you guys are going at. But if I'm going to tell, a business owner, and what is the size of the parcel for Dunkin' Donuts? It's less than an acre, right?
Well, the parent parcel is 10 acres. I think they want to carve out less than an acre.
Less than an acre.
For that, yes.
Which is where this number comes from, right?
Yes, that's where
Yeah.
that number comes from there.
You're talking about less than an acre charging someone, it's probably more than the acre cost.
Well, I mean, and these are the numbers that, were thought about by the Environment Committee. What I'd just like to say is that I think maybe the main adjustment here might just be the cost per inch that could come down. I think that the layout and the guts of the ordinance might be good, but that these costs may be too high. That's up to everyone.
I hear you. I mean, even to tell a resident, if they want to take down a tree in their own property, I mean, you mentioned the word fair, and I looked in the definitions. What is fair?
Well,
to me,
so it wouldn't be in the definitions. I think it's in I can't remember which code it is, but it'll describe, the tree that has, I don't know, half of its canopy or something like that. But I can't remember if it's in the code of ordinances or an ordinance.
Yeah.
But
I'm saying, like, if it's a dying tree and it's, it's fair condition.
Yeah, fair.
Then I have to pay to have it treated or take it down. Then that's my option. I have to pay either way, right? I mean, the way you look at it.
Well, yeah, it has to be
eventually it's going to die.
Right, mitigated on site, or you just let it die, and at that point, we wouldn't have to take it down if it's in poor condition.
I don't know. Though that was just my little kind of overall. And again, I'm not arguing that I agree something has to change, but that just seems very excessive. Just to look at this for less than an acre, that was a big shock.
It's 6 times the initial cost.
Yeah, that's quite a bit.
5.9 to be exact.
Do we have the comparable for Frankfurt that you could put up so that you could explain kind of like a side by side with some of the stuff?
I don't want. I can only talk from memory.
Okay.
If I may.
Yeah, so how we're going to do this workshop is, I feel like if we can be mature, that we can all kind of just jump in and talk. I just would hope that you guys would give your fellow trustees respect when they're speaking. That's all I ask, and so we can just go from here.
I think too,
I have to expend the rules or whatever it's
when you're asking about prices.
I got to do
I'm
one
sorry.
little
Go
thing,
ahead.
sorry. What is the motion? I have to expend the motion. Is there a motion to suspend the rules for the workshop?
I so move.
Trustee Stylen, Trustee
second.
Reinders, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Go ahead.
No, I guess I was just going to say that when I worked for the Village of Frankfurt for 4 years, their tree preservation ordinance, I don't know how else to put this, but I think it was more effective than Homer Glen's, actually. Frankfurt's ordinance did apply to every single parcel within the village. However, there was only a list of maybe 12 preservation trees. So, and that was just like the most high-value trees, hackberry, different types of oak, things like that. And if those ones went down, then they'd have to be mitigated for. So it kicked in sometimes, but it kicked in, enough to make a difference, I think. That's, I know it's a little bit scary that it would be, applied to every single parcel in the village of Homer Glen, and I'm not saying that that's where we have to go, but that was just my experience with that.
Some of the other things, when you're talking about with the costs, we were sincerely looking at, how do you discourage people from coming in and just ripping out the trees. So we have a lot of that going on. That's what a lot of the Environment Committee members have witnessed firsthand with neighbors, because a lot of them live on a lot of the wooded lots further back. And then these people come in and they just take them all down, and then they sit there and pretend like, well, it wasn't that much. And then they're buying, you know, itty-bitty trees. They're not doing the coverage that they're supposed to do. They're not mitigating to the extent that they should. You know, some of the things that we were also talking about is it causes drainage issues. There's
Cost of what issues?
drainage
Oh,
issues.
drainage.
Erosion.
You know, erosion, you know, you're talking about deforestation. There's always the ill effects of that. You know, there's so many pieces to this, and that's why I know it's, Sue and I sat in on this. This was really
Trustee
brutal.
Stylen.
Trustee Stylen sat in there with us. You know, we did our best to kind of hammer it out with all the issues that we saw, the complaints that have been going on for a decade. So, you know, one of the things that Director Gruber helped us was being able to do side-by-side comparisons, like with Frankfurt. And then I don't know if anybody has this one in their packet. It was at the very end, but it was on the computer version. It wasn't printed out.
I think you each got a big one, right? Or am I the only one?
I got the smaller one, sorry.
Oh.
Okay, so, but like I said,
Oh, I
these
do
are
have
some of
the
the
comparables.
comparisons. Okay, okay.
Yeah, do you want to, oh, I think I have, I'm a hog, I'm sorry.
Well, we only.
I actually only
and
have
there were more,
three.
but like, here's
Can you pass one down for them to share?
four good examples, you know, and like you said,
I have more.
this is something they've been doing for a while in Frankfurt. You know, Frankfurt is comparable in a lot of ways to Homer Glen when it comes to population, you know, and they have a lot more development than we do. So how do you discourage people from coming in and illegally taking the trees down and not mitigating? So we wanted to go higher with the penalties to do that, you know, to discourage.
Can I just interrupt you for a minute?
I'm sorry.
Would anybody on the Environment Committee like a copy of the comparables while you're here, unless you've seen them? Okay, just wanted to,
Yeah.
or if you do, you know what, I'll bring them. Continue on, Trustee Constantino.
Okay. You know, it's, our biggest things are here, it's mitigation, it's discouragement, it's penalties. So we're game for listening to any additions, or what your, you know, what your fears are. Will this hurt, you know, and be burdensome? You know, our problem, like one of the variances we were looking at tonight, it wouldn't have popped the tree preservation ordinance, and they already ripped down a bunch of trees on their property in anticipation of building a structure, right? They didn't even get approval yet. And so that was, I think, why the Planning Commission suggested that a condition had to be, you have to put in 10, you know, arba verde. And, you know, because it didn't pop our tree preservation ordinance, you know, so when you go smaller, it pops the tree preservation ordinance. They have to do something to mitigate. You know, I'm in firm support of, you know, what we threw in here and what we're asking for. It's up to everybody else to kind of do the work and look at it and say, okay, we don't think this is reasonable, and we're willing to listen why, but this has to be completely rewritten. This whole ordinance is a mess.
I don't disagree with you at all. Actually, what I'm just having a hard time.
No, it's a lot.
It's an awful lot.
But at least this is a start. So this is a good start.
Trustee Falco, do you have anything? I'm just kind of opening up. Trustee Reinders?
No, I think they did a great job on this, but I mean, yeah, I agree. You know, it's a little confusing in some areas here where you're looking and they're saying what's preserved and what's not preserved. And on this attachment here, you look on one side of it and it says that the tree mitigation, you know, this, if it's in fair condition, remove it. But then on the other side, like I'm just looking for an example, like the black walnut, which we all know is an amazing tree. And then you go on the other side and it says here, the black walnut is a protected tree. So can you take it down or you cannot take it down?
It's the size of the tree.
Right, I know it's the size
not
of the
the
tree, but I
type.
mean, even if it's a small tree and it's rotted, are we allowing them to take it down?
If it's rotted, yeah.
Even if it's a black walnut, which is a protected tree?
It has to be in fair condition.
Yeah. So, I mean,
Well, it says fair condition
If
stays.
it's rotted, it would be a poor
It's a little
condition.
confusing. You know, I think it's a little confusing, that's all.
One of my fears is policing this. I mean, who's going to police this? Especially, I mean, most people will take down trees on the weekends. And like you said, and then when you kind of said like premeditated, I'm thinking, you know, this is like police work, right? It's like, I just feel like this is going to take more staffing, more time. I mean.
So in other places that have worked that will remain unmentioned or unnamed, it was on a complaint-driven basis. So we only heard about it through complaints when neighbors would, you know, kind of inform on each other.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be, you know, driving around looking for this or anything like that. It was just when it was blatantly obvious that it was, you know, I guess enforced.
Anybody got anything, Trustee Mason?
I get we're trying to simplify it and make it more effective, and staff is recommending to repeal the original from 2006 and 2010 and replacing it with one new single ordinance, which I get. I just wonder, you know, earlier Director Graber had mentioned that there were 12 types of trees in another municipality they had worked at. And how many do we have that are on the protective list at this point? Because when you take something that's from 29,000, not to utilize Trustee Fialco's wording, but it's a taxation, it's a 6 times taxation compared to what it, I mean, when you go from 29,000 to 171,000 for a guy who's putting up a single family home, wow. You know, something on that order. That's wow.
Trustee Steinle, what did we, and Director Gerber, didn't we agree that we were trying to figure out a way how to exactly determine the protected tree list, if that was a list that we wanted to come before the board to determine?
Yeah.
I thought we had
how
one.
we ended that conversation?
Yeah, if I could jump in on that.
Yeah.
A protected tree was anything that was at least 5 inches to 24 inches, and it was not a nuisance tree, and it was at least in fair condition, and then that would have to be mitigated for. That's how it was decided.
Can I ask the Environment Committee for just like a yes, like a nod? Can I do that since we suspended the rules? So when you guys were thinking of this, did you guys look at this example of what would happen for Dunkin' Donuts? Okay, so
They didn't get that.
they didn't get that. Okay. I mean, do you guys agree that that seems excessive from going from 20, I mean, again, less than an acre, right? From going from, as we stated many times, 29,000 to 171,000 per, I mean, per the. Yeah, but I mean, I know, and I'm just asking you now, if we fully adopted everything that you guys had proposed to us, and you're the Environment Committee, I mean, you guys know, you know the best, right? So do you agree that that seems like a lot of money? Yeah.
The reason, it is a lot of money, and I agree with you. And the last thing we want to do is impact.
Would you mind stepping, I mean, I want this to be a community kind of deal here, so I mean,
Could Mr. Pinelli go up there with him?
yeah, whoever wants to speak, I mean, I want this to be interactive.
I agree with you, it's a large increase. And the reason for this large increase is that when those original prices were put in on our ordinance we have now, that was back in 2008. And from 2008 to 2025, 17 years, go to a landscaping place, that's the price of the trees today. That's what it's going to cost you today. It's today's prices. So yeah, prices have gone up in 17 years. What you paid for a tree back in 2008, you're going to have to pay that much more now in 2025.
So I have a question. There was, in the minutes that I was reading through it, there was a question of, at one point it said, remove and replace, and then it was taken out, or pay and replace, and then there was a change somewhere along the way that said, pay or replace. Did we ever find out why the change happened, or when the change happened, or if that is even a change, or if it was just
I
a
don't think
misprint?
that should be a change. If that is, it's an error. It's either pay or it's either you mitigate the trees on site, or it's to pay into the tree fund. But in the instance of a single family, no, actually, I take that back. So that it would, and anybody correct me if I'm wrong, but my
Well, I'm asking you, so I wouldn't know.
Yeah. But my correct recollection was that a developer would have to both plant the trees on the site and then give the village a letter of credit. So that if those trees died, then they could be replanted. If they survive after 2 years, they get their money back.
Okay, so I have a question, and maybe I'm just wrapping my head around this too much. So they have to pay to remove their trees, right? And this is the cost, and then we're going to make them replace them, which is another cost, correct?
Yes.
And then get a letter of credit.
So it's going to be like $171,000 plus the cost of these trees?
No,
Okay,
no.
so it's pay or.
Right.
Okay, that's where the confusion of the
Oh,
wording
I'm
was.
sorry if I misunderstood.
Okay.
And one thing I also wanted to mention is that we investigated a little bit the cost of lumber. So if these trees are, nice mature oak trees, they have value to be sold if they are taken down. So, I mean, it might not be $171,000, but they will get some money for that lumber.
You'll get about $30,000.
And we also had an idea, or Chris had an idea about the tree survey. So if it's a smaller lot, there's just 1 or 2 trees on the lot, you don't need a tree survey. Staff could go out there and just look to see what they have, and save the homeowner the cost of a tree survey. A tree survey would only be on larger lots, so you know exactly what's what. So, we're not going to impact the residents with tree surveys.
Well, I guess, so I'm trying to play devil's advocate here, right? So did anybody ever reach out to Homer Tree? Because if I wanted to remove, I don't have any trees in my property. I had to plant some out in my front because I bought the house without any. But if I wanted to remove 2 trees, I would have to pay this, then plus call Homer Tree Service and pay the fee to have it removed. So now the cost is even more, so.
So
right?
you'd have to pay to remove the trees, pay somebody to remove the trees. And
Pay a
then-
service to remove the trees.
Right, service to
plus
remove-
pay the village.
Plus, yeah, if you're not able to mitigate the new
Plus
trees
mitigate.
on the site, and anything can be changed. It's just.
I mean,
So I'm going to be a devil's advocate too, if I
Yeah.
may. Right across from your house,
is your mic on?
right across from your house, and I know this because I live over that way, have a wood shop that way, actually, for fallen trees. But your neighbor cleared 8 acres of woodland all last fall, all the way through the winter. There was hundreds of trees California didn't clear. They burned to the ground. You have to get rid of saplings and wooded area, and he has a 15-acre home there. Am I correct? Am I correct? Your neighbor across diagonally from you? Yes. And he has like a 15-acre lot? And he did from the fall, and I'm telling you, this went on from November to January, right? It lasted forever. He has 8 acres of wooded land, and it looks beautiful now because he cleaned all the little saplings and all the brush and all the undergrowth.
You're not paying for that.
Well, depending on if it's 5 inches, right? So he left the mature trees, and it looks beautiful now.
Well, he removed the nuisance trees, which isn't fallen, well, I guess what.
Was that a black walnut that was protected? That was 5 inches?
Yeah, who's surveying?
So if he would have
each
cleared that
property
and made
is?
it beautiful and made it non-fire hazard, what was he gonna pay, 300,000? Plus have the trees removed, plus put sit at the village holding a letter of credit?
Yeah, I'm a little nervous, guys, about these costs.
That's a
I mean,
lot.
It seems like an
We're into
awful lot.
$500,000 or something now.
To
I mean, look
hold
what we
people
did,
to-
look what we did on 143rd. We cleared all that whole brush that was under all those mature trees.
And you want that sometimes.
Now it looks beautiful.
And I get that what you're trying to do, as you just stated, was to discourage.
Right, we get that, right.
To discourage people, but no, that just seems like an awful lot.
Well, there's like 2 lots that just been built on 143rd on the north side, just east of Cedar Road, and the guy bought the lots. He cleared most of the trees out, and then the developer came in and he bought it and he built 2 houses on it, and he cleared out the rest of the trees. So you had a completely, like 5 acres of wooded land, and it's just all gone.
Well, 5 acres would trip our ordinance that we have.
Yeah, but they were 2 lots.
2 lots,
Oh.
they were 2.5.
So 2.5 acres each.
Yeah, so, and like Mike was saying, 139th and King Road, they're same thing. The guy cleared out 80% of the trees, and you can't stop them. And residents are getting upset. Here, let me just say this. About 10 years ago, Homer Glen sent me to the University of Chicago. They had the Chicago Wilderness Conference there. And the Morton Arboretum did a study on our oak eagle system. And it went back from the 1830s when the first maps were created. And they said that we lost 90% of our trees. 90% of our oak ecosystem. This is according to the survey Morton Arboretum did. And that was 10 years ago. And we've continued to cut down our trees. So we're down to single digits. So when do you want to say we got to have some rules?
Well, can I pause you for, Mr. Baber, remember when that company came just last week and they gave us the chart of how further along we are with our trees than any other town around here? Did you happen to bring that with you today?
I did not.
Oh,
but
that would just
we're-
be good information for you
May I
guys
ask
to
a
have.
question?
Yeah.
So you say you went to a Morton Arboretum and they told you we're 90% less. You say we. Are you saying the state? Homer Glen? Who are you saying?
There was a 4-state. It was southern Wisconsin, northeastern Illinois, Indiana, and a little bit of Michigan.
Gotcha. So a Midwest area. I gotcha.
It was a larger area.
My next question would be, okay, so now we have BP pipeline that comes through in Claire's. We have ComEd that comes through in Claire's because they have to get to their pipes. Does this apply to them?
Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm all for that.
I kind of like that.
Yeah, I like that idea, I do. But to tell someone who bought a lot, and I understand if someone's going to buy a wooded lot, 9 times out of 10, they're not coming just to clear the whole thing.
Well, and they're also not
wanna
buying a wooded
live-
lot just to have a wooded lot.
Yeah, but I mean, they want to build a home and, you know.
Well, you can't penalize them because you have the larger lot, and then you have the building site plan. This is where the house goes, and maybe a septic field, and in the driveway and everything else. So everything in that box, they could take out. They could take out. If it's a completely wooded lot,
good to know.
Tree next to tree, everything in the building site plan, they don't have to pay anything. They can remove all the trees on that
I didn't
site
see
plan.
that in
So
here.
that
What page
leaves
is that
just
on?
the perimeter left.
And I think you get like 20 feet.
I'm afraid to show you
Like
the size of
around
my
the
packet because I
structure.
feel like this
Yeah,
was a
so-
whole tree.
Yeah, so it's not like you're paying for every tree on the lot. You're going to build a house on it, you're not going to be penalized for all the trees in the building site plan. Those are free. And then you can remove 50% of everything else.
Yeah.
So you really...
Well, that's a better explanation now.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
really,
I
you
didn't
guys...
see that in my
Yeah, I didn't catch that in here.
I
Yeah,
didn't
so
either.
that's in there. You can take out 50% of the perimeter.
Right.
And everything inside of there, where your house and all your driveway and whatever you got in there, you take
Right, I
everything
understand
out
now.
free.
I mean,
Mr.
that's
Gerba, do
great.
you know?
That's great that you're reporting that.
Do you know what page that's on in there? Because I didn't see it.
I don't have it in front
We'd
of me.
have to go back through it and find it, but,
Okay, and did that,
Just a second.
did we
What is it?
use, and did we use that when we did this analysis here for Dunkin' Donuts? Did we include like their site plan
One
in
thing I
here?
want to note with that comparison with Dunkin' Donuts is when they initially came in, we did try and recommend some other locations, knowing that there was a lot of trees on that property. There is a lot of trees on that property. So I don't think necessarily it is a overall good comparison. That particular lot has an abundance of trees. So it's pretty extreme, I think, for a commercial parcel with that as an example. just make note of that. I mean, it's an extreme location with a lot of trees.
I get that, and I agree with you. My first question is, did we include their parcel in this analysis, number one? Like where they want, what they want to build, did we?
The site plan.
Yes.
Okay, so that's in here too. Okay, just, that was number
Well, but
one.
the site plan is not, since we don't have an actual application,
Yeah.
I would have included.
And my other thing is, I have a hard time discouraging someone from buying something that somebody has for sale because we feel that it's, you know, like if someone has a piece of property for sale, I would hate to discourage somebody from buying someone else's property because it's wooded. I mean, if someone wants to buy it, and I don't know.
But the sad thing is, we have all of this
I get it.
Well, I
cleared
think
off
I think he
land, and then
covers
they
it.
choose the most wooded lot
I get
on
that.
that road to build a
Before
Dunkin' Donuts.
159.
All right,
This
respect.
came before us before with that lot size, and we discouraged that builder at that time. And I believe it was the Dunkin' Donuts, just because, for that reason, because of the trees that were there. We almost have as many Dunkin' Donuts as we do trees now, so the thing is, it was because of that lot and the shape of that lot and what it was going to destroy that we were not on board with doing that there. And that was like a year and a half, 2 years ago. Well, no, just over 2 years ago.
Right.
The drainage.
What we're just trying to do is discourage people from cutting down trees unnecessarily.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
but I almost wonder, is that why the lot was as cheap as it was, knowing they had to pay to cut down trees, right? So I mean, what's the actual value of this property then, if we're going to charge them $171,000 to cut down trees if they want to put something there?
So that's considered an unimproved lot, and yes, that does come down. It brings the price down of the house because it's unimproved, because somebody's going to come in there, they're going to take down the trees, and then somebody's going to pay for that costing.
So that's kind of like where I have a hard time.
You know, you're dealing with people that love their trees, and you gave them free rein to write this ordinance. And
I didn't, this was 2008, I was 17 or 17.
so, but you know, well, that's our main goal is to discourage people of buying say a 1 acre wooded lot, or buying a house, an existing house on a 1 acre property that was, the people on there, they loved their trees, and they had trees front, back, sideways, and everything else, and they come in and cut down every tree because we want to see the house on the street a little better, and you just cut down hundreds of trees.
I mean, I feel like I'm running the meeting here. Go ahead. Yeah, you need to turn your microphone.
So I think just the general recommendation is if we're going to have an ordinance that says that the plat or the preliminary plan, site plan, is going to exempt somebody or exclude somebody from having to mitigate or pay for trees, we have to define what we mean by site plan. You know, a site plan means so many different things to so many different people. So are we talking about just the building line footprint of a residential lot? Are we talking about just the pad elevation Mr. Westcott and his engineers take a look at to assess grading? Are we talking about the building line? That box, that envelope, in mass grading work, we call it, in mass grading, when we do development of pads, we call that the building footprint, the pad envelope. I think that area has to be better defined rather than just calling it a site plan, because a site plans that I look at include the entire lot lines of lot that I own. So that's a site plan. When I go to Mr. Westcott, let's say hypothetically, and I want to build on lot 132, I give him a proposed site plan with my building footprint on there. Here you go, Mr. Westcott, here's my proposed site plan. Everything's on there. So if the intent of this ordinance is to exclude trees on the building envelope, then we have to define it as such. Or if what we're saying, sir, is that we want to exclude trees within the building envelope and beyond a certain footage to the south, to the east, to the west from that building line, that makes sense too. I'm just saying from a technical legal standpoint, we have to define that. So everybody understands.
Well, that's where you come in.
Well, but I think though, for comparative purposes, if we can start there first to find out what this typical box is going to look at, meaning, hey, a typical lot, let's say it's 125 by 300, here is what the building envelope would be. All the trees within this box are outside of the ordinance. We're talking about the peripheral trees. And then do a comparison from what the prior ordinance fees and costs would be compared to what ours would be, and you can see how difficult truly it is to modify it to minimize costs based upon
So
the
I'm just, this is your building site plan, and this is your lot. So everything inside of your building site plan, you can take down. Everything outside, you can take down 50% of it. I don't think that's outrageous at all.
No, and I'm not,
He's just saying to define it.
I'm not weighing in, sir.
Yeah,
I'm not a policy guy.
We're not,
I'm just a legal guy.
we're just volunteers.
Right.
Oh, no. And this isn't to you. This is to the staff more than anything, because I sense, part of my job is I kind of just sense where some of the questions and where some of the
No, and you
questions
bring
coming
up
from
an
the board.
excellent point, so.
And I believe if the village staff were able, or the board were able to see what the site plan would look like, what area of a typical
Parameters.
lot we're talking about is excluded outside of the ordinance, meaning no one has to pay or mitigate anything within here. And then, but the stuff around this periphery would be involved, and then compare that to the costs associated, compare the two costs from the prior and the new ordinance. I think that would shed a lot of light on this. And also we need to take a look at a comparison in a residential format compared to a commercial format, because a commercial format is going to have much less lot lines and things of that nature. It's going to be, that box is going to be significantly smaller, I would suggest. I would say.
The same thing with utilities. I mean,
I agree with everything that Mr. Pasquinelli's saying, and it's not your job, and thank you very much for your service. We appreciate it truly. We are all here trying to work to preserve the trees, but I think the comparisons need to be made. I think if we're defining a specific area or footprint, then we, as a board, will be able to better decipher. So I don't know if it's written in there, Mr. Gruber, as far as, is it written in here?
It is for residential. So for
residential,
yes.
but not commercial.
But not for commercial, it would apply
We need
to.
to create those parameters before we finish this for commercial as well, so we know exactly where we're at, so.
It's the perfect example.
And that was a great example, and I think when you think about if we understand the parameters, and we know the distance from the north, the south, the east, the west, and what the footprint is exactly for commercial, residential, and then run comparisons, now we have a better look at it.
I guess if I could ask, I'm just for clarity, for a site plan for a commercial, you want to know how many trees are going to be taken out because of the proposed building, and then compare that to.
No, I mean,
go ahead, attorney, if
I
you can.
think Mr. Westcott can shed some light on that.
Yeah, I think that
Ma'am, I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
what we're looking for, right, is clearly, what Mike's talking about is clearly defining, right, in a definition, right, the development. It's your driveway, your sidewalks, your foundation, you know what I mean? There's that, and then your 20-foot buffer. I think that was what you guys had proposed.
residential.
Outside of that, what is termed, right?
It's disturbance zone. is what's in
Disturbance
here.
zone, or what is defined as the development? Is it the driveway, is it the house, is it what's all included in that?
Right.
And then the disturbance zone, and then what's outside of that is what we're applying the 50% removal to beyond just the disturbance zone. So you can remove the trees without penalty within the disturbance zone, and then anything outside of that disturbance zone.
But the way that it's written is that this would apply to any parcel and any tree. There's no longer the 50% threshold, there's no longer the 75% threshold for commercial, as it was determined by the environmental committee, and that's what I wrote.
It was equal for regardless of what type of property is what you're saying.
Correct. Yeah.
So
right.
If you have the disturbance threshold, we're saying for that, right, you can remove all the trees in there, within that, without penalty. And then outside of that, in the peripheral, every tree you remove is subject to or there is no threshold of the 50%.
No, 50% could still be removed, is my understanding, right?
Right now, for a commercial property, you can remove up to 75% of the trees in the site without penalty, as long as they're under 24 inches.
And what are you proposing it to be?
Well, not what I'm proposing,
Well,
but...
I'm sorry.
What are you?
What does this say? Because I'm still
Right,
trying
yeah,
to
so what
find
it's saying
it.
is that it would apply to any property. If a tree is coming down that's at least 5 inches diameter, that's in at least fair condition, it would require mitigation regardless of the development that's happening. That's how it was.
I'm hearing two different things, and maybe I'm confused.
Well, I don't know what it is.
Did you have, can we listen?
Go ahead, Mr. McGee.
Thank you. I just wanted to give a resident perspective on this. So
Sure,
been here almost
yeah.
30 years. So I've seen the development here over the last 30 years. You know, we came here because of the trees and the environment. We spent a lot of time, we spent the last 10 years trying to find a property had the correct zoning for the expansion, a sanctuary or an event place for our rescue, right? So a lot of time talking with Taylor or previous people in that case, talking about zoning, which is very strict. You guys understand the aesthetics regarding zoning in Homer Glen is very strict. Okay, you have to have the face of an outbuilding or something has to be a certain way. These are trees. So what are we, you know, the aesthetics, what are we concerned with as humans, right? We're concerned with keeping our environment. We're just here. We're host on this planet, right? It's not about, okay, if I have the right type of brick, or okay, this soffit looks good, or this color, I want them all to match. You have such stringent rules regarding zoning for houses, buildings, et cetera. There's very little agriculture here, although this is going back in history, this was a highly agricultural area. It was also highly wooded, as Joe was talking about. So I just want you to consider that these rules are commensurate with communities that are adjacent to us, Frankfurt, whatever. So if there is such a strange, I can't speak to the Dunkin' Donut example. You know, there's a lot of things that aren't described here. You know, we don't know. If it seems extreme, the six-fold increase, it's because the village of Homer Glen has not stayed up with this. Maybe it's got, as Joe talked about, maybe it's got to do with, the cost of living, the money, everything else. And it's been 17 years or whatever that is from 2008 where these costs have been increased. But the point is, we're behind. And we are not protecting our community. So if somebody wants a wooded lot, they should probably buy the wooded lot, allow the development area, given the 20-foot buffer, not all of the language is not applied to that, but then they just maintain that wooded lot, and that makes sense. If somebody doesn't want those trees, why would you want them to buy that wooded lot? I mean, I don't know if that even makes sense for them to do that. And so I think that what Joe and other people are saying is we want to discourage deforestation in our community because we've been laxed on it. Our neighboring communities have surpassed us.
Mm-hmm.
And Mayor, sorry, one more thing.
No, that's okay.
Right in front of you, the symbol of a tree. Right behind you, a symbol of a tree.
I understand everything you're saying.
Right.
I don't disagree with you, sir.
Sure.
My concern is the cost.
Yeah, no, I get it. And then, we all have to live in this world. We have to compromise, et cetera.
Right.
So that's just my perspective, and I appreciate it. Thanks so much.
I still don't see in here where someone said it starts on page 102 to where the canopy, I mean,
She said it was B, but I don't read it that way.
No,
So that's- thank you.
It starts on 101A where it starts to talk about removal of the trees prior to issue of a grading permit or before you even start to grade. on a
Right, but
piece
that's just
of land.
about a permit. It doesn't
Right.
say that this X amount of, what he
No,
was
there's
talking
nothing-
about, the
there's nothing
square
there.
was
There's
included
nothing-
and.
I think something's really missing.
Yeah.
There's something missing. You
Yeah,
can't-
I think
there's
something's,
nothing here.
because I know I've
There is
seen
a
in the
page missing.
past a diagram, and so maybe with all the redlining or,
What happened was that this packet was huge. I had the red line version.
Yeah, so there's
and-
this packet, and then I said, we're talking about trees, don't print another one of these. Is what
Yes.
Yeah, and then we got
Yes,
this one.
So I think you might have the full one that
Yes.
shows it all, like with the red line version, and all the
And then
pages
there's our
within the red
chocolate.
line version that did not change. So you can read it start to finish. And then there was the not red line version that was, with no strikeouts, so you could read the clean version.
Right.
But so that it looks like there's something missing.
There's,
But was-
yeah, because I don't see what you guys are talking about
Yeah, was there
at all.
a definitive page that shows the actual like a site plan and what has to be?
Representation.
Yeah,
I know I've
No,
done this before.
Like the 20 feet that they're saying that would have to be on the outskirts of the site plan. So this is what is confusing to me, is because nothing is defined there as far as where do you start mitigating trees? Where can you take the trees down? Where can you not take the trees down? I think that would be much more explainable, and I think we would understand it a little bit better.
Okay, I thought that I did mention it, that it would apply to any parcel regardless of zoning, ownership, et cetera.
That I understood.
Yeah,
Right,
right,
but
right.
there's-
But I don't know why site plan, there's a kind of a hang-up on the site plan. It's irrelevant at this point. If a tree
No.
comes down and it's healthy.
Could be in text.
Wait, so this is where I'm confused, and I'm sorry if I'm having a hard time following
Yeah,
along.
sure.
But what you're telling me is the new ordinance that is being proposed, from what I'm understanding or hearing, is that if they have a site plan of where they're going to plop a building, anything in that site plan, and then 50% of the remaining property is free game. They can clear it with no charge, right?
No, so, yeah,
that's what I was hearing from,
So,
so I'm hearing two different things. So that's what I need to
So
understand.
right now, the current ordinance.
current ordinance is the free
ordinance
game.
So for 50% for a residential property,
Mm-hmm.
you can take down half of the trees in the lot with no penalty. For commercial property, you can take down 75% without penalty on a commercial property. With
Okay.
the proposed,
For 5 acres or less.
for 5 acres or less,
Okay.
correct, and if they're at least in fair condition. So you meet all these criteria. For the proposed ordinance, if any tree that comes down that's at least in fair condition, that's not a nuisance tree, that's at least 5 inches in diameter, must be mitigated.
Regardless
And
if it's where that house is going to
full
be
stop.
plopped down, right?
No, for the house, it's slightly different. So the house is that the environmental committee wanted to have a break for single-family residential so that they only have to replace a quarter-inch caliper for every 1 inch they remove. So like a very, mild penalty, if you will, of where they situated the house and 20 feet beyond the footprint of the house, the driveway, so beyond that. So you could situate your house there where you wanted to, have a slight penalty, and then all the other trees outside of that 20-foot, you'd have to be mitigated at the full amount. So it's kind of helping to have a house there and not be as burdensome, and that is written into the
But that, what
code.
you're saying is completely different from what I'm understanding, right? Am I? I don't see that in here.
Well, let me try to
Brad,
find it
can you
here.
help me? What page?
So we have this, the summary of proposed text amendments on the back of the supplemental sheet, the front page there. It's page 3, and it's number 11. And that gives you that text behind all that stuff. The development of a single-family home, an existing lot or parcel, so on and so forth. And then it talks about the 20-foot buffer, and like Director Gruber was just saying, the 20.25 caliper inches of tree replacement per each 1 dBH removed. So I think that, to clarify, what we're saying is those trees that are located within the building footprint and the 20-foot outside of that, right, that disturbance zone, no penalty for that. Everything else on the lot outside of that, you would have to mitigate for.
Well, a very mild penalty within that.
Right.
Yeah, very.
Right. It would be a reduced.
You're saying no penalty and you're saying minor. Which one is it?
It's extremely reduced. So there's a very minor penalty, if you will, to mitigate. That's the 0.25.
Which I
correct,
see here.
To 1.
The reason for that is because somebody might choose to place their house where their trees are because they don't want to pay any penalty to get rid of those trees. So we want to make sure that that's not the motivation for your site plan.
I'm gonna pause for a minute and have the attorney.
So you're
give
paying
the
no matter
attorney
what.
just 1 second, and then
So just, again,
Microphone.
I get stuck on the legal terms, and I get stuck on the legal terms and such, and just, so that we're all on the same page. When you say footprint, Mr. Westcott, what are you referring to?
Yeah, so I'm sorry, go ahead, Mr. Westcott.
What does that mean, is what I'm getting?
It's defined in here as the proposed, footprint of the proposed house would be basically essentially the foundation and driveway is what is.
And 20 feet
Right,
beyond
and then-
that, because you're going to disturb the roots.
A shed, an outbuilding, a garage,
A pool.
a pool.
So
What,
that would be separate,
right,
right?
that would be mitigated the full amount as per the environmental committee's recommendation.
So you could be paying $171,000 for a swimming pool before putting the pool in?
I'm sorry, the attorney, did you finish your statement?
No,
Okay.
Mr. Westcott clarified.
I'm going to give the microphone to Ms. Nazar.
Two quick questions here. When we moved in our piece of property, we had like 6 PIN numbers. Our house is on a very small parcel of land. We took down 7 trees around the house and they were living, but they had not been cared for and trimmed out. So they posed a safety risk on my house and falling on my mother. So I took those out, even though I did not want to. So I think that's something that also has to be in there because
in
of
there.
it.
It does,
It's in there
it
to
has
safety.
nuisance.
Okay, the other thing too is that if you're on a piece of property and you have black elm, or it's black walnut.
Black walnut.
And you've got a neighbor that maybe has livestock and you're asked to take that black walnut down because the fact
Poisonous.
that's poisonous to the livestock. So that's something so who gets charged for that?
And it's beautiful wood, too.
I know, because I had 10 trees, 10 black walnuts taken down on my piece of property in order to put in my outside arena and that type
Right,
of stuff
right.
too, which I hated to do. But, who gets nailed for that? So that's something you have to think about for the
So we just have to
help.
clean up. We have to work on it,
just
but
little
clean it
edges
up.
and stuff like that.
I do have a random question. I know we have an arborist, but what is a village forester?
I
It's
think
the same thing?
I think that's one of the same,
It's the
yeah, that
same
was the
thing.
existing language, and we just kind of carried that over.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure there was no difference. And then we would actually be, this would seem like a full-time job to me, if this is the route, right? We would need like a full-time arborist, maybe?
Well,
Thoughts?
so if we're talking about.
We have one, but it's not,
Yeah.
Ben Victoria is, isn't she?
yeah. But to do all this, it might seem,
Well, yeah, and it's probably going to fall in multiple different employees, myself, Taylor, Director Vittori, building, to be able to implement this. The only thing that I was thinking with Director Vittori is that, if there's a single-family home that's getting built, and Mr. Strugielski, how many single-family home permits do we get per year? About 20 or 30?
Last year we averaged 50.
50. Okay. So 50 per year. And so maybe for those single-family lots, that if there's not that many trees, that Director Victoria would be able to say, okay, of those 5 trees, I know what all those are, and save the cost of a survey to that person. I thought that might be reasonable. I'm not her boss. But that.
Okay, just one question.
Yeah.
If we're going to mitigate the problem.
is your microphone on? I'm sorry.
By having staff, thank you. By having staff take care of the problem, is there going to be, is the thought to have a permit fee to cover staff's time to mitigate the trees now too? So there would be an additional cost to that? What I'm seeing is we keep pyramiding here. From one thing to another. Now we're full-time employee possibly. We don't know who's going to tag the trees, who's going to monitor it, who's going to then make the final decisions. There's a lot of facets to this, I think, that maybe haven't been covered.
Well, yeah, a lot of it has, and I'm sorry to interrupt, but I guess a lot of the burden would be on the person that's developing, whoever that might be, to hire an arborist to survey the property, and that alleviates staff of a lot of time. But like I said, for single-family lots, if there's not a lot of trees, it might be able to be done by
So that's
Director
another
Vittori.
cost for the developer, though, too, to hire the arborist to do that. So
Yes.
whether they're paying the village to do it, or we're paying the, staff to do that,
Yeah.
it's just another cost, that's all. So that was a good pickup, though.
And if we want to take the entire thing, and I don't want to be out of turn and just go with Frankfurt's of what they're doing, that's an option too. If this is, I'm just throwing that out there, but maybe I shouldn't overstep my bounds. So.
You know what I did read this quite a few times, and I had a ton of questions, and I picked Joe's brain, I picked the attorney's brain. I kind of tried to do the best I can, but I'm definitely going to need a little bit more time to highlight the areas that I have questions on and maybe understand a little bit more, because just the perfect example, I didn't even see page 3. I don't know how I skipped it, but it still doesn't define what I was asking in the degree that I was looking for. I'm all about saving the trees, and that's the plan. I think we have a consensus here is that's what we want to do. I would just like to see a better example than the Dunkin' Donuts maybe, because that seems very excessive and extreme. Maybe if we can pick out some lots that are vacant in Homer Glen, that are for sale. So let's just say there's 10 lots in Homer Glen that may have some trees, wooded trees, empty trees. Like what would I want real numbers to determine what it would be. And you got to remember, 5 inches, like,
That's
is that it? I mean, approximately?
No, it would be bigger
Smaller
than that.
or bigger? I don't
A little bit, like this.
Okay, well, I'm just thinking of like a 12-inch softball I know is like this
Right,
big, you know?
right.
So, I mean, I'm trying to imagine like
Yeah, about like that.
removing a tree, taking a tree. I'm just trying to understand more solid numbers.
Attorney Pasquinelli, I think, wants to speak.
Well, we suspended the rules, so I mean, you guys can speak when you don't have to wait for me.
I think
Go ahead.
Trustee Stylen had a great point. If I buy a wooded lot and it's partially wooded, and I've got a big front area, and I decide, hey, I'm going to build the house where the trees are. I just took down 90% of the trees on the property because I want to put my house in the back.
No, I agree 100%. We're saving the trees. Again, my thing is just, I want to see what the real numbers are.
Right.
Mike?
Yeah, and I think,
Sorry.
and just kind of adding to what the mayor's saying, I think it would make sense too, from a recommendation standpoint for me, that not only would you have another sample, take maybe a couple of samples, maybe a couple commercial, a couple residential, but also show pictorially what that site plan, what that disturbance zone would look like. So you can see, I mean, I've seen tree surveys many times in my development career, but you'd be able to see like the dots and like the different, and the root and canopy shading areas of the various trees that are over there. And you can put, and Mr. Westcott certainly could take a look at it quickly, and put like a proposed disturbance zone, show you what the 20 feet would be around that building envelope, so everybody can like visually see what it is that
Yes.
people would be responsible
But we'd have
for
to have a tree survey.
paying for, right? So if it's just a matter of, you know, maybe moving the house around to try to encourage everyone to try to save the trees, which is what 100% I think everybody here at the board, or all these trustees are trying to accomplish here, and staff, I think that they could then visually be able to see that a lot better that way.
We have a couple examples of past developments, Oaks, Villas of Old Oak, where they did tree surveys. So we'd be able to provide additional examples of these types of things you're asking.
I'll be honest, I'm not so much concerned about commercial, utility. I'm more concerned about the individual homeowner.
Single family.
The single family homeowner is the one I'm more so concerned about. Not saying that I don't want to help businesses out, but the resident is the one, as Trustee Fialko would say, it's like paying that tax. I mean, it's just my opinion.
And you can show it pre this new proposed ordinance, what it would look like and what the cost would be.
Yeah.
And post the proposed
Yeah.
ordinance, what it would look like, what that envelope would be, and what
Right,
the new
but
cost would be.
for a single-family lot, we're not getting tree surveys, I don't think, are we, Mr. Strugielski?
Not unless it triggers the current 5-acre threshold.
Right, so it's going to be really hard to find those examples because we don't
Well,
ask
just
for
make,
so many
just make one
surveys.
hypothetical, or just
Yeah.
pull up
Just-
one of the site plans.
Draw me a picture.
Right,
Sure.
So they can see, they can have an
Yeah.
idea, because I think there's a lot of confusion still up front.
I think we could have our arborists go out and do a pretty
Yeah.
good survey on some of those lots.
Mr. Pinelli, did you have something?
Yes, thanks.
Is that mic on? Is it green?
Oh, sorry.
There you go.
Thank you. I think what really helped me when I was looking at this, in the agenda, and I think it's page 222 in the agenda, 222, 223, 224, is a 3-page summary that Chris put together along with a comparison.
I'm missing pages 109 to 247.
Yeah.
That's the problem. I don't have everything in
We were going to
here.
get it on this.
You know what, 224 wouldn't probably come up, it would be like on the digital, so.
Yeah, this
So I
is
think
this-
that's
this-
part of the problem.
This
but
is
yeah.
on the
He's talking
agenda.
about the background.
This 3 pages really kind of does an excellent job comparing old to new. And what the beauty of the kind of the framework that Chris put together is that, you know, it's a framework in which things can be tweaked. If it's clear that the discouragement to do heritage trees is too high, or the fine is too high, it can be tweaked down.
Yeah.
Or the ratio of the replacement ratio, if it can be dialed down. Or if 5-inch trees is not what we want to call a significant tree, but 7 or 8 inches, or if politically we ought to just leave it at 6 inches, we can do that. But the real importance here is trying to just put a value on trees, because on 5 acres, less than 5 acres, there's just not a value today on existing properties. And if you want to add swimming pools and gazebos and everything else to the footprint, sure, you know, whatever you think is the right thing to do, you know, the framework that Chris has created can just be, you know, the different dials can just be turned. And maybe we can consider looking at that also within the examples. You know, if we tweak the ratio, or if you know, if we dial down the cost of the replacement per inch, you know, we can look at the scenarios that way too.
Yeah.
And say, I can sell this, or I'm comfortable with this at the end of the day for what you do. But I think Chris came up with a pretty good framework there that we can do that. And when you're on the website for the agenda for this meeting, those would be the go-to pages, 222, 3, and 4. I think that would get you to that summary of proposed text amendments. Thank you.
Thank you. And Chris, you did a fantastic, and the Environment Committee, and Chris, and everyone, Trustee Stylen and Trustee Consolino, everyone included, Brent, I mean, everyone included did a fantastic job. I just guess I'm trying to wrap my head around all of the changes. I'm so used to the old one that, you know, that this new one is very shocking, and not that it's in a bad way, it was just a lot to digest.
Absolutely, it is.
So I personally, sorry, Trustee Stylen.
Sorry, I was going to say, I think it's easier if you just saw like an ordinance, like without all the redlining and with the proposed things in it, and then you could sit there and actually look at something and say, how would this apply?
Yeah, or an example. Yeah. Like I guess I still don't understand if I had one tree on my property, I don't know what type of tree it is, let's just call it a whatever, something tree.
White oak.
And I wanted to
elder.
remove it. What would that cost be from start to finish? Because I'd have to hire an arborist to come out. I would have to pay to have it removed, right?
Yes.
I'd have to pay the village to have it removed.
Well,
No.
so, yeah, so if you,
I
let's
pay a
say
fine to remove
if it's a
it.
10-inch white oak, or something
Yeah.
like that, that's in fair or better condition, yes.
I have to pay the village to remove it, a fine or a fee or a tax, whatever we want to label it. And then I have to pay the company to actually come and remove it, right?
Yes, or you could, you know, buy a bunch of saplings, or not saplings, sorry, but 2.5-inch caliper trees to mitigate that tree on site.
But I'm still paying to pay for these trees.
Yes, absolutely,
So
yes.
I
And
you're
guess
gonna
my
get a letter
question is,
credit.
what is that cost from
and-
start to finish?
And it sounds like that's too high, and.
I don't know what it is. I'm
yeah.
asking, like a 10-inch tree, you're saying $300
So-
per inch. I mean, right?
Yes, so is that $3,000?
Yeah, just to pay the fine to the village, right? To
For-
remove one tree, I have to pay the village $3,000 plus
Yes.
pay the company to
And-
remove it, and then pay again for the arborist.
Yes.
So you're talking maybe
And replant.
$5,000.
Right, so there's a couple things here I'm sorry,
Right?
did you have anything else, Mayor?
Well, I mean, is that what I'm, is
Yes,
that what this is saying?
That is what this is saying.
Yeah.
But I think that maybe what's giving everybody a lot of heartburn is the costs
Yeah,
of
yeah,
mitigation.
mhm.
And then the cost could be like Mr. Pinelli just said, could be dialed down. The alternative is to actually give a break to, you know, single-family properties. And just, you know, really, if you're not taking down more than 10%, if you want to go back to the 10% ratio, or, you know, any way to give more, I don't know, help to single-family residences.
So I hear chatter over here, I was just curious.
The only, recently, or a year and a half or 2 years ago, Dunn Farm project came up, and we kind of were working on that. And I'm just, maybe we were looking for an example. I don't know specifically how the Dunn Farm project would be affected by this
That has
change.
over 2,000 trees on that property.
Right.
Yeah.
So we're, at this point, when we're talking about the, it's on.
It
I'm just
doesn't
not
sound
close
like it is, yeah.
I'm sorry, usually I'm pretty loud.
You're yelling.
No, but, yeah. Not today. Anyway, that Dunn Farm project, I mean, maybe that would be a better example to use
It's a big
for
wooded
yourself
space over there.
to see what that, how that would impact that builder.
I mean, we could do it, it'll take staff some time, because since there are 2,000 trees to do that math.
And that's a lot of money.
I'll bet
Give
you
me an
there's more than
estimate.
that.
Yes, it
I
would
mean,
be.
I'm not saying pick out every tree. I don't want you, spending all this time out there, but give me an estimate, 2,000 trees, think about that.
We'll see you at the end of summer.
That can break that person.
Or just
the
stop the whole
developer.
development altogether.
And actually, if you think about the entrances for the Dunn Farm, there's several of them. And if you come in off 163rd Street, there's a big wooded area right there that they're gonna have to, and I mean, and that runs all the way to 159th Street.
And again,
There would be a footprint there.
Yeah, and there would be for,
So,
but I
so, you know, that
It would be a
would
footprint, but I mean, there's, like you said, there's a couple thousand trees.
Yeah, but what they're saying is if a development comes in, now what is that footprint? Is it per house?
Yeah.
It is per house? Or is it the whole footprint of the whole plan of the subdivision? Like, what is that footprint?
The lots that would back up to the wooded, right?
Well, it would
No.
include the streets. The whole,
So
you
there-
know.
yeah,
I need some help.
Yeah, oh, sorry.
There's no trees.
Is that going to be considered the footprint?
Yeah.
Right, that's,
Where the
you know?
development is, because it's in a circle, basically, and on the one block. But I mean, is it basically, is that going to be the footprint?
No, so for the development of Dunn Farm, that's a new subdivision, and there would be no leniency, and that would be the full mitigation requirements. We're only talking about an existing single-family home lot that isn't developed. That's the only thing that would be giving any, I still can't find the right word.
Leniency, yeah.
Yeah, leniency, I
Okay,
suppose.
so if a developer, Brett, I see you scrunching numbers over there. Did you come up with an idea of what one would be? No, you're going to need a few hours, right? Got
What's
it.
that?
You're going to need a few hours to
Yeah.
give okay, got it.
I think as long as we have the
okay.
tree survey in an Excel format, I
Yeah.
can spit something out for you pretty quick, but I'll
Yeah.
probably get that to you tomorrow.
So I guess I can't even go as far as wrapping my head around what a subdivision would be, because I'm still stuck on what that individual resident would be. I mean, just hearing the one tree at 10 inches, $5,000, I don't know.
I think that
Would be,
What's done, 267 acres or
or
something?
pick a subdivision, and that way we would have a better gauge of what we're
Yeah, so if
looking
we
at
can
as
get a couple
costs.
examples.
So I think that, you know.
Yeah, but I mean, the whole
Sorry,
thing is
Mr.
like
Westcott, yeah.
No,
267
the
acres.
summary, you know, I think the summary is very informative, right? This is the kind of, as Mr. Finley said, this is the summary of everything that they're asking for. They have this nice table that compares existing to proposed for just about
There you go,
every
page
single
eight.
one of those bullet points.
I get
On
it.
there, right, and everything like that. And I think, you know, that's a big part of it. I think, you know, Sue, when you're talking about going through the
Trustee
whole.
Stylen.
Sorry, Trustee Stylen, going through the whole ordinance, redlining and things like that at this point in time, I think it's important for us to lock down more the high-level summary. What do we want to see? What's the price per inch? We give some examples, you know what I mean, the next time we kind of sit down and talk about this. And then we can kind of, like they've been saying, dial in those numbers so we can get a little bit closer to what we feel comfortable with, and then clearly lay out, here's scenario A, single-family residence. Here's scenario B, subdivision. Here's scenario C, commercial development, right? And then we have examples for all those things, and it very clearly lays out what those impacts are.
I love it.
For all those things.
That
And I
would be
think that that's
fantastic.
a good starting point, and then we can dial those things in, and then we can start redlining the ordinance, and then start getting drafts together and go from there.
If the board is okay with this, I would recommend like a committee of the whole with the environment committee.
Yeah.
So we can learn it all at once, so
Yeah.
we're not duplicating the efforts
Yes.
of doing this.
I think
If
that would be a very
Trustee Consolino's
smart
good with
idea.
that.
Yeah,
Environment committee, I'm sure would be good with that.
thank you.
So that would be my recommendation.
More hours of our lives will be spent on this, but
This is
it's a good start. and
this is a
that's-
big
that's
deal.
That's, I think, Can I get nods out of our committee? Are we okay with that? Yeah. That would make everybody very happy. It's
Great.
a lot of effort, so thank you.
Would you mind making the arrangements for that meeting, since you know everybody and everyone's emails and fun stuff? Yeah. Or we can just all go to the next environment committee and make it a
Could do
committee
that
of the whole.
too, make
so-
it a party.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Well, sorry. We'd have to change it. The attorney's given some
I was
advice
just
over
going to
here.
ask if Attorney Pasquinelli, before we let this go, do you have, because I know you have lots of expertise when it comes to development, do you have any further suggestions for us tonight on this?
No, I think what Mr. Westcott's suggestion was spot on,
Okay.
just to be able to put it in an Excel spreadsheet like that. And I've seen how we can operate and change the deltas around a little bit.
Yeah.
And change the inch requirements, and we can see how many trees that can impact, and what the relative cost will be. I think that'll be very, very powerful for everyone to see how that could be tweaked to make it work for everyone. Yep, yes.
All right. Does anybody else have anything to add about the trees for this evening? No? Okay. Is there a motion to take a 5-minute recess and then go into executive session for...
I'll make that motion.
Oh, wait, is there a motion to reinstate the rules?
I'll make that motion.
Trustee Fialko?
Second.
Trustee Consolino, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. All right, now is there a motion to go into executive session to discussion regarding personnel, discussion regarding pending litigation?
So moved.
Is there anything else that you want to
I'll
add?
second that.
That's it.
That's it, okay.
Utility.
First, and utilities, sorry. First and second by Fialko and Trustee Reinders, all in favor? Aye. All right. Thank you guys for
Thank you very much.